All right, this is the June video chat with, I say fans because it's shorter. I should probably just say viewers because you could have a beef with me. And I'm not assuming everyone's a fan, but I'm assuming there's some interest. But, I tend to be a fan of words with less syllables because they go faster. That's why I hate, actually, annoyance mine is when they're trying to replace a word because it's obsolete or problematic, and then the newer one has more syllables. I don't like that. You should always like keep, if you're gonna have like more politically correct language or more accurate or updated, you should go for lower syllables. Like just it makes it easy for people to go for uh, the new word. Okay, so yeah, I have a game dungeon out, so I feel better about showing my face again. Uh, right now, I'm it's there's I'm doing a lot. I don't want to. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out. However, I feel confident I'm on the path to having like kind of optimal output in the future. I think I'll know for sure how it's really flowing in like a month or two. But in the meantime, more videos should be coming out at the previous expected rate. 1 to 2 a month, hopefully, maybe more. Uh, before everything just went to hell with me trying new things. So I'll have things more figured out in the future. It's still I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I feel confident that, like, I'm on the path to finding out what's going to be most efficient, and as far as getting more out and not compromising on the quality. Uh, yeah. So that like I feel pretty like I would like, oh yeah, the next Freeman's Mind is going to be a long one. It might be the longest one. It's not because it's any particularly special. It's just because I just didn't see a good jumping off spot until I got that far. So sometimes that dictates the length of the episode for Freeman's Mind. So I was gonna say, if I was just doing that, I think I would have the voice work done by the end of the month. But I also really want to kickstart the next game dungeon. So kickstart is just a general metaphor, not the website. Uh, so I want to get like a certain amount ready for people helping me, and then probably go back to Freeman's Mind. So those both may not be done by the end of the month, but if I was just doing one of them, I think they would be. As far as like voice work, writing, and all the supplemental material. However, for Freeman's Mind, there's going to be additional time for sound effects, and for Game Dungeon, it varies how much help I'm going to be getting. So I'm still determining that. So, oh yeah, so I was mentioning the movie. Actually, that's the one good thing that's come out of all this is that in having this huge delay that was not planned, it looks like my audience is still mostly here and I'll survive. So that's a very good sign when I'm just disappearing on purpose. But I figure I'm running behind, but my new plan now is to just try to stockpile videos for you guys. Not hold them back, but I mean, it's like just try to get a lot of game dungeons out and a lot of Freeman's Minds out, and maybe try to finish off this huge side video I was doing, so that when I do disappear again, you don't feel like you're getting robbed. I feel like, oh well, Ross got a lot of videos out before he did that, so that's kind of where my mind's at right now. So I'm trying to like really transition to getting a lot more videos out. Not faster than they should. In other words, like I don't want to compromise the quality, but just I really feel like I owe you guys for just such a long absence. Well, yeah, yeah. I say absence. I was working at stuff the whole time, but it just didn't. It wasn't panning out well with how it was translating to the videos. So those are my plans for the moment. For the rest of this month, it's just going to be Freeman's Mind in the next game dungeon. But oh yeah, and I have what I'm going to call the abuse of power segment of this stream, which I'm basically using this as the way I would use it for specialist interest in me hunting down answers in a forum, except I feel like these are too niche for me to find answers reliably on a forum. So I'm just going to ask you guys, and maybe one person out of 10,000 listening to this can give me an answer. Yeah, my email is rosswscott@gmail.com. That's the best way to ensure I see the answer. So I have a couple questions for you guys, and actually one request. This shouldn't take too long, hopefully like 5 minutes or something. Okay, so the first one is a tech support question. And it's highly possible there's no, I literally cannot fix this on my end. It would have to be like the person who writes the drivers. But, okay, I'll try to run through this quickly. I upgraded to a new monitor a couple months ago. I'm liking it a lot. However, there is one thing I don't like that I don't know how to fix this. Okay, so the general problem is I have this hooked up, and I also have a VR headset hooked up, mixed reality one, Samsung Odyssey Plus. And on the old, what happens is I can boot up everything fine, use VR, but if I turn off my monitor, that's it. Like, I cannot get the signal back. And what will happen instead is it will display the raw desktop image on the VR headset. And so it's not like I put it on, then I can see my desktop. It's like I put it on, and if I close one eye, I can see part of the desktop on there. It's not supposed to do that. On the old monitor, this did not happen. Both monitors used display. I was using DisplayPort on my old monitor, using DisplayPort on this monitor. So nothing changed, really. I've experimented trying to install like specific monitor drivers. They're both Dell monitors. That didn't help. I double checked to make sure like my video card, GeForce 1070 BIOS is updated. That didn't help because there is like a firmware update for the card. That didn't help. You know, experimented with different drivers. That didn't help. Experimented with DCC on and off. That didn't help. One thing I did do is the only thing I've been able to do that did help. That's not a solution, but it's a workaround. Is I went in and I found that this problem did not happen if the VR headset was unplugged. So what I've set up a hotkey script to specifically go into the device manager and disable the VR headset. If I do that, then I can turn my monitor on and off, and I can have another hotkey for re-enabling the VR device, and then it works. But it's like the VR software is supposed to be smarter than that. It's supposed to tell Windows that like this is not a normal display device, and it should only be activated under certain circumstances. But it just ignores all that. And when I go in and like look at the device manager and try to re-enable the monitor, like, you know, when I was looking through one eye through the VR headset, it's like the monitor is dead to Windows. It's like, fine. It's, you know, that phrase like, you're dead to me. That's how the Windows reacts when I turn off the monitor and the VR headset is plugged in. So I don't know. So I was saying USB-C screwing up. I mean, maybe, but the VR headset, I forget how it's connected. I think it uses HDMI for the VR headset, and the monitor uses DisplayPort. But again, I was using DisplayPort on the previous monitor. The only thing that changed was the monitor. But that was enough to just have Windows or the mixed reality have a meltdown, so I don't know. Yeah, I have to reboot the system if I want the monitor image to come back, if I turn it off. So, yeah, it's like if you turn that monitor off, it just thinks it's dead. So if you have ideas on how to fix that, let me know. But it may not be fixable. But I hope I'm keeping my fingers crossed about upgrading VR at the end of the year, though. So maybe it becomes a non-issue, but I don't know. So I was saying possibly stupid answer. Could it be insufficient power draw? Well, I doubt it because it seems like I would use a lot more power. Like, let's say if I had the computer at full load, like I was running a a game or doing video encoding that's hitting all the cores or something. So you can really hear the fans spinning up. It seems like that would use more power than just turning the monitor back on. So I don't know. Didn't you despise VR? No, I don't despise VR. I mean, it's no, I think it has a lot of potential. It's just, I think it's niche though. Like it's not good for everything, you know. No, VR has some of the more amazing experiences you can have, especially in gaming. But okay, so that's the first thing. That's my tech support question. The second one is sort of a tech support question for my wife. This is related to field of view. Okay, so in games, the field of view, if it's too low, that can make me queasy. But if I can kind of turn it up somehow, either through a hack or a mod, I'm usually fine. My wife, however, is pickier. She can have problems where even if a game has an FOV slider, some games still feel off to her. And the way she described it is apparently like the focal point feels like it's too far away to her. And see, normally you fix that by like lowering the FOV so it seems more flat, but that seems to throw her off. So if there are any optics experts or, you know, or understand exactly what's happening with the rendering and you think you know what the issue is, as far as like why some games feel good to her and others don't and like give her a headache, let me know. To give you some examples, okay, some games that work well for her are Guild Wars 2 and Minecraft on the normal FOV setting. I think it uses 70 degrees vertical. And games that have given her trouble are the newer Prey game, which has an FOV slider built in. It just felt off to her. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and I even installed an FOV mod for that, and it still felt off to her, like with it. And the other game is Final Fantasy 15. She tried to play that. Although that one, it's hard to say because I wasn't able to find a mod to tweak the FOV for that. If somebody knows, that's the other part of her question. If somebody knows of a mod for Final Fantasy 15 to tweak the field of view, let me know, because I couldn't find one. I feel like it might be possible though, because I know it's a different thing for a different purpose, but for the program VorpX, you can hack the field of view on a lot of games, although it almost always causes artifacts though. So I was thinking maybe something like there's a plugin for reshade to kind of access the buffer and manually maybe you could like force the field of view, but then it doesn't have data for the edges, so it could just like have that kind of streak effect or something like that. I don't know. So let's see. But yeah, if you have ideas on that, let me know. Maybe I can try and help her out with that. So yeah, the game Prey, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, and Final Fantasy 15, she just couldn't get looking right for her. It just always felt off. But Guild Wars 2 and Minecraft on normal field of view settings, those did work for her. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some other subtlety to field of view, that there's some extra thing that they're doing, like the curvature. I have no idea. So, let's see. Saying, does she have astigmatism? I don't know. Maybe she should have an eye exam. She usually sees okay though, but let's see. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the final request, I've mentioned this one before. Don't get your hopes up, but I think I want to try to commission a piece of software. Though I probably can't pay you a lot, and it kind of depends on how many offers I get. But what I want to commission is what I've mentioned about before, where you have a video and then you have depth data with it, and you want to render that out in 3D in real time. So it uses the depth map data to determine like the height of it. I found software that does this, but they all have problems with it. And I found, so there's like a list of features I might want to, but they'd be pretty simple, like being able to stretch the level of depth, that sort of thing, or change the scale. It could be this, most of the hard work has been done. I read about a plugin for the Unity engine called Depth, excuse me, my voice is going a bit, called Depth Kit. And it could be that gets you 90% of the way there, and then there's just a couple tweaks we need to do. And again, on software, I've seen 6DOF Viewer, the program VR.in, though that one was one of the best. It just tried to do it real time. And then Neos VR was probably the closest I was able to find. But again, they all have issues. I kind of just want to combine what these programs can do. So if you think you might be up for that, let me know. Maybe we can work something out. And yeah, and again, like one of the things that I think Neos VR probably uses the Unity engine to do the rendering. One of the things I don't like is, like, okay, like if you're trying to render a 3D image based off of depth data, like let's say I'm holding my hand out. Well, the computer doesn't know what's behind my hand, so it may as well be just like a canyon of fingers behind it. That's okay. I think we would need a lot more niche AI and analysis in order for the AI to take a guess that my hand is a hand and not just a hand canyon. But what'll happen is it'll look at it and decide, okay, well, the background's way off in the background. You know, I'm going to stretch this, but you know what? I'm just going to give up. And then it has a tear in the middle of it that just you see right through it. And it's like, well, can we at least just fill in the tear and, you know, with like just have it stretch the texture or something? And the VR.in application did do that, but like the others I've seen didn't. So yeah, another way to explain it is like, pretend you have a shadow right behind you and except that your shadow is just tears through reality. Like there's just no solid at all. So instead of just saying it hits the wall, no, it just goes off into infinity. So some of the applications seem to do that. I would want to, I think if you can fill it in with something, then that would help a lot. But okay, so that's it for requests. And it sounds like my voice is weakening a bit too. That happened in another video chat, but I remember it came back when I did the other video chat. So we'll see how far I get into the questions. Okay, so the first question is, did you ever finish mapping out the island in Revenant? No, I didn't, but what happened was I started, someone offered to help me and I started getting some images for them to help me patch it together. And then I realized the color was off between my originals and what I was recording. And I couldn't figure out why. I mean, at first I thought it was the video compression, but then I did it losslessly compressed. And I thought, well, is it running after, are there some video control settings that are interfering with it? And so it looks like I'm either gonna have to figure out how to color match it against my original work or else start over. And so that kind of hung me up and then I got sidetracked and then boy, my voice really is going. It's gonna come back though, I think in like 10 minutes, but so that made me put it on the back burner a long time, but maybe I'll try to get that resolved before I do the follow-up episode and have it completed by then. It's a lower priority for me. Yeah, somebody was saying that like somebody made a list of all the projects Ross wants to run down. I could probably do that off the top of my head, but it's like the map, it was low priority. So some of these are much higher priority, some of these are lower. Like probably the highest priority side project that I feel like I have to do it is in the movie. That's not even a side project. That's like a main goal. But would be what I talked about in the Dead Game News episode with trying to get this campaign off the ground to get France to analyze the legality of of basically having games destroyed that people paid for under a perpetual license. I feel so stupid I haven't gotten around to that yet. What happened was by the time I was kind of ready to, that's when the pandemic was really going full swing. And it sort of sent this mentality for me at the time, like, geez, this is going to seem like really tone deaf if I'm like trying to push for this like in the middle of the pandemic. Maybe I should just let this lie for a while. And now I feel like that wouldn't have that feeling. So somebody's saying drink some water. It may not help as much as you think. I had a lot of water before I started this. But yeah, well, maybe I'll see if I want to leave for a second. But yeah, so not yet, but I'll probably do that for the follow-up episode. Oh yeah, this is another one where you probably would have gotten better answers asking me a few years ago. What is your oldest piece of hardware you are still using? I'm not sure because I jettisoned a lot when I moved to Poland just because of the weight. And most of the stuff I took with me, like it was stuff like the motherboard, CPU, hard drives. At one point I had a IBM Model M keyboard, but that didn't survive like the second flight, I remember. So I stopped using that. That would have been quite old. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's probably one of my external hard drives, which I just have it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not this one, but I mean, I have some of those lying around that I plug in and out of an external dock. But let's see. Yeah, I guess it's probably just external hard drives that I'm still using. So and they're probably not more than like 10 years old or something like that. So not that impressive an answer. Though I guess on the secondary system, I might have some older stuff, but it's all around a similar age where I bought some more equipment once I moved to Poland. So it's around that era. Some YouTubers I follow have previously mentioned that saying phrases like please like and subscribe, even sarcastically or in the context of a joke, actually has a visible positive effect on their treatment by the algorithm and subscriber count in general. How do you feel about that? Do you have any metrics for your sub count versus view count that you can share? I tend to not even look at them when, after I started doing the Begathon video, I was making enough that like the fluctuations in YouTube income wasn't just as nail biting as it was before. So it would just stress me out every time I looked at it. So I just stopped looking at them. Yeah, I probably would boost it, but I mean, I don't like having to annoy people to keep the channel relevant, or relevant's kind of subjective, but like to keep it functional. So since I'm making it okay without doing that, I don't want to do that. I mean, I've heard that phrase so many times. It's like almost like my brain is kind of like numb to it and doesn't like hearing it. It's something it tolerates. So it's like, I don't really want to perpetuate that with other people, even if it does make things more effective. Yeah, I mean, my mentality of it is if I did a good job on the videos, well, then you'll want to come back, hopefully. And if you don't, I mean, I guess the people that targets are people who are really forgetful and they might want to watch the videos again, but they'll forget who I was or what that video was or something. But I figure, well, the algorithm might make it so I come around again every once in a while. So it's what? It's yeah, I mean that's not why I'd rather just focus on giving you like the best videos I can in a sane amount of time. So that just sort of detracts from the quality of the video to me. So I don't want to do it unless I really have to. And if that means less viewers, then that means less viewers. So I only care about it in the sense that YouTube forces me to care about it. So, and I'm above that limit at the moment anyway. So I'd rather just stick with that. Let's see. What is your favorite and most acclaimed game that you will never do a video game dungeon on? I mean, it's not that, I'm not sure I really feel that way about most games where I feel like, no, I will never cover this. It's just, it just seems so, it just doesn't seem like there's much point, you know? Some that come to mind are like favorite and acclaimed games, like Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I mean, those are fantastic games. It's just that I don't feel like I would have much to say about them that hasn't been said already. Yeah, when I cover popular games, I'm probably going to say something you haven't heard about it. Like, well, The Division, that was a fairly popular game, but I was noticing how it's like, wow, this is actually more on point. This is more believable than it should be for the confusion of everything and the chaos, shooting people where you're not even sure if you're the good guy or nobody's sure. Like, and we have people that don't seem to be really grasping the gravity of the situation. You know, it's so. Yeah, or Deus Ex, pretty much. And yeah, I wouldn't have made the Deus Ex video if somebody had just like nailed it before in another video. But I felt like nobody had really gotten it. They just all focused on the gameplay. And it's like, no, there's more going on to this game than that, you know? So, yeah, I'm trying to think. I had another thought, but I think I lost it. So, but yeah, but both Super Metro, yeah, oh yeah, that was the other thing. I guess the other thing is for games like that, for the kind of Metroid, people say Metroidvania, but I feel like most of the groundwork was done. Well, yeah, I've heard it's all kind of derivative, but because Metroid kind of was derivative of some other stuff. But I guess the thing is, Metroid really popularized that sort of format of game, and what Castlevania added to it seemed kind of minimal to me compared to Metroid. So, but yeah, for those types of games, that's also in the category of stuff like the Sonic games, where there are people who analyze that on levels that I'm just not even aware of, where they're saying that like, oh, by having this platform here, you're able to speed run it at this point, and you know, that's why this 0.5 second delay in the jump is so important for this game. And it's just like, they're experiencing these games on a different level than I am. And I am going to contribute nothing to that conversation. Whereas I'm more drawn in by like the atmosphere and like, oh wow, this music. I mentioned before how I like that feeling when you feel like you're really deep inside a game world. Super Metroid absolutely gives you that feeling. Because you're going deeper and deeper underground and you're underwater. So it's like I'm more about like, I guess like the aesthetic angle of it and like the game. And for the gameplay, it's like the gameplay is fun. They did a good job. And that's about what it's when the gameplay has a lot of problems or really bizarre decisions that like I tend to speak out more about it or something that hits me. Whereas, yeah, the Super Metroid, the gameplay is fun. I enjoy it. Maybe they could have refined it a little bit, but considering how this was early 90s, it was a complete home run, you know? So, so for those types, I'm aware of some games, it has just like a fanatical fan base. So I have to kind of establish that, no, I'm not trying to rewrite the rules or say they're wrong and all that because they're just looking at the game completely differently than I am. So, yeah, I'm kind of rating the game by Alien World Experience, and it's like 2 thumbs up. So that's how it goes for me. Oh shoot, I meant to catch up on this one. I didn't. Any game announcements that have piqued your interest from the recent not E3 streams? No, I haven't had a chance to go through them all. Uh, I saw this question. I thought, oh, I should get around to looking at that, but I didn't get around to it. I did see a mention of it sounded like a Metroid style game with Bloodborne aesthetics. I don't remember the title of it. I wrote it down somewhere, and the chat probably knows the title I'm thinking of. So, but I'll go through the list and see what looks promising about it. Yeah, I did watch the trailer for what's the name of it? The new Bethesda space game. Jeez, I forgot the title of it already. Star something. I'm sure the chat's gonna remember what that is. And I noticed in the trailer, at first I thought it was micro stuttering, but no, they actually uploaded the trailer so that Starfield. Thank you. They uploaded the trailer so that it it has duplicate frames in it. So there, I guess I'm not sure the technical term because I would call that micro stuttering, but sometimes micro stuttering can mean just there's frame pacing. I guess micro stuttering is both. Because frame pacing issues are when there are no duplicate frames, but it kind of feels like there are, because instead of having a smooth motion, you have like a kind of effect to it. But no, they just straight up screwed up with the trailer upload. And so I was like, wait a minute, is that stuttering, or is like my browser just not handling the video? No, I went through it frame by frame. They have duplicate frames in the trailer. So that's not a good sign. But that could be the game, or it could just be they've screwed up I can't talk. Screwed up uploading a trailer to YouTube. So I don't know. And I realize this feels kind of hypocritical considering my videos, but I just want to emphasize I try. And something I actually cut from the Mage Knight Apocalypse video is I was going to talk how there was some jerking in there, and it's like, and stuttering, but it was really inconsistent because sometimes it would be, the game would be nice and smooth, and then it would just stutter. Even though this is a friggin', 15-year-old game, something like that, it's still stuttering and on modern hardware. And so, and then one thing I noticed at the end when I was finishing up editing was I was going through it frame by frame on something, and then I realized, oh shoot, did it stutter there? Really? It's like I just can't capture it. But then I realized the capturing wasn't the problem, because I saw the mouse cursor move ever so slightly between the frames. However, the 3D portion was a complete duplicate. So so there was stuttering going on inside the game. So in other words, the fact that the mouse cursor was still moving means that the game wasn't stuttering below 30 frames a second, and like the capture software was still capturing, but there's some deep level of stuttering inside the game itself. So I'll have to point that out when I do the follow-up. So I'm not sure anything could prevent that, but I mean, unless there's like some technical level where there's like, it stutters only on the 3D element, but it's being rerouted for the cursor somehow. I don't know, but yeah, it's rendering on 2s. Think stop motion. Yeah, actually, I was wondering though. Man, that's sort of a question for the audience. Like, if you're a casual viewer, if you're a casual person on this subject, don't answer. But if you're like a psychotic expert on this, let me know. What is the best way to capture stuff that just utterly minimizes the chance of frames dropping? Or like frame blending or anything like that. I mean, is it like a capture card, but only certain brands? Or because, someone who's actually gone through and tested this stuff, and maybe like more problematic titles or something. I'm just curious. I really try to have a smooth video, but it doesn't always work out like that, either from the game or how something captured. Yeah, somebody's saying a second PC, no joke. Well, yeah, that could be, but then what's the capture method between that? Like, how do you like, do you split the output? And then, like, what software uses that? Because software can make an enormous difference also. Like to this day, I'm sure there is a solution, but whenever I record footage using OBS, which I never do for Game Dungeon, but I do it for like live streams and stuff, I always get some level of frame pacing issues. Like I tested it, I just did these tests, and it's like, yeah, it feels like it stuttered there, but it didn't really, you know. I don't know what it is, so. But yeah, I mean, it's a, it can be a tricky beast, you know. Okay, yeah, somebody's saying The Last Faith. That sounds like the game I was thinking of for that I saw that looked interesting. I like the aesthetics of it immediately, so. Oh yeah, this one I tried to think about, and I had trouble thinking of something, and I just sort of forgot about it. What is the most bizarre and unexplained thing you've ever come across in your life? I mean, I don't know. I guess I haven't seen a whole lot that can't be explained, you know, and that's really bizarre, or else it just kind of, or else it wasn't so remarkable, like I never forgot about it. But well, I'll give a runner-up answer though, because there was obviously a very clear explanation for this, but it caught me off guard, and I've never forgotten it. When I was living in Pittsburgh, I was walking along. Uh, I was downtown. I think I was going to get something to eat or something. I forget. But there was a guy. He's like in his 50s or 60s, and he was talking on the phone to someone. And I just overheard part of the conversation as I was walking by. And the part I caught, I may have said this already, was, well, if the knife was in your hand and you had blood on it, of course they're going to think you done it. Like, and that always stood out to me. Like, it was, and the guy's logic was sound. Like, the knife was in your hand and it has blood on it. Of course they're gonna think you done it. It's like, well, if you're innocent, you're gonna have to bring your A game here, you know. Really show get your alibis or whatever in order. So, yeah, I may have told people that already from the chat, but yeah, I mean that's not really. I guess you could call that bizarre, but I mean it's just an interesting conversation to overhear, you know. And the guy's tone, it was just like, are you stupid? Like, you know, like, it was kind of like that, you know. It wasn't like this big tragic thing, but I mean, it might have been, judging for what he was talking about, but like the guy's tone on the phone, it's just like, it's like he's having, it's like he can't believe he's having to explain this to him, you know, like, let's see. See, I'll try to think about that more if there's, I guess that's one of the reasons I'm not that superstitious or, um, about things. It's because I've seen too much that just can be explained or just doesn't, I haven't seen enough, I guess, that just defies like all explanation to me. So it's, like I'm not intimidated whatsoever by haunted houses. I've had people try to take me to areas and saying all their friends got creeped out. It just had no impact on me. It's just like, yeah, it's like an abandoned house, you know. But I guess maybe that's why I like things like games and movies and things, because they can spice it up and make things happen that wouldn't be, or amusement parks, you know, they can kind of give it that extra edge, you know. So, I have not seen the new Dune movie, so I figure I'll wait until they have part 2 out so I can just watch it without having to wait too long. Maybe I'll rewatch the one from that because I think I mentioned this before. Like the David Lynch version is very stylistic, but it deviates more from the book. But I think the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, from what I remember, that one was a lot closer to the book. So maybe I'll rewatch that again and see how it holds up. Because I realize I haven't seen that one in a long time. What is a question that no expert has the answer to that you would want the answer to before you die? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess... I mean, there's stuff that might be interesting, but... I mean, some things you may not want the answer to. Like, I guess, like, the bounds... What are the complete bounds of the universe? Or life in... if life exists. It's like... What if the answer is, well, no, it's really just a bunch more rocks and gas, and that's pretty much it. You know, it's... well, that wouldn't be a very satisfying... And stars, you know. That wouldn't be a very satisfying answer. So sometimes the mystery can be better. I mean, well, I guess one I've sort of just puzzled with before that I mentioned is how do you prevent a system from being overrun by corruption? Because I feel like just any plan, like any like ideology or plans for government or just ways you organize things, it seems like over time, almost all of them fall to corruption. Like no matter what measures you have, and you can do stuff to prevent it for a long time, or if you can have a leader that's not corrupt and keep it that way for his or her lifetime, but then over time things just get chipped away, and then it just... This is a problem I've tried to figure... I mean, not to give too dark an example, but it's one that just comes back to me, is like right now, to the best of my knowledge, DuPont is still poisoning the water. Like they got busted for like the C8 stuff after, or the PFOAs, I forget the chemical term for the stuff, after doing that for decades, and they got fined, and I think they eventually stopped, but my understanding is they basically just switched to a slightly different compound that's still poisonous, but because it's a brand new compound, like the laws under the EPA say that they can kind of self-regulate until it's been determined that this actually is harmful. And because it's brand new, that hasn't been determined yet, and it gets caught up in the bureaucracy. Look, this is not a complicated concept that an organization is poisoning the water, so you need to get them to stop and have some penalties so that this doesn't happen again. That's not complicated, but it's like over time, like, yeah, in like medieval times, the penalty would probably be like hung by the neck is what probably be. But over time, you know, you'll get provisions where you get where these companies can pay lobbyists to pay politicians to kind of change the law. Well, instead of hung by the neck, how about like a fine of like $10,000 or something, you know? And so this is a little more palpable to us. And so that's where the corruption occurs, that it's, you know, so we've chipped away at these things we know how to handle. I'm not saying have to have death penalty. I'm saying you need, like poisoning a water supply that thousands or millions of people drink from, to me says that this needs the harshest penalty possible. So if it's life imprisonment, fine. Then they're never going to be a problem again. So that's not. I'm not necessarily advocating for death penalty. Just I'm advocating for this can never happen again. Kind of response to that. So and some sort of penalty as a deterrent for others that would want to poison water, something like that. But over time, the corruption chips away at that. So it's like we have a justice system that can handle this problem, but because of corruption, it doesn't, or gets obfuscated and drawn out, and lots of damage gets done. And it seems like it's like that for like just any system. You know, it's not unique to like America. So it's, and I'm thinking, it seems like it's something that might be solvable in theory, Because if you take 100 random people and just say, well, would you poison the water supply if it saved you a little bit of money? Almost all of them are going to say no. And maybe, let's say maybe 3 of them say, sure, I don't care, whatever. And then maybe if there was a lot of pressure, like coercion, or they can make lots of money if they did that, then more would do it. They wouldn't feel great about it, but you could influence more. But this isn't something that's like endemic to human nature so much as like a small minority of humans. And then, so it's like you need to, if you can find ways to kind of control that influence, it seems like it might be a solvable issue, but I don't know. So when people say, oh, it's just human nature, no, I think the majority of people will make good decisions the majority of the time if they have good information. So, I mean, most people have morality and wouldn't do that. But again, you can put pressure on people to kind of strong on them, but that pressure is coming from the corrupting source, you know? So I don't know. That's a question that it feels like it might be solvable, but I don't know. It just eludes me. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if every person was like that, then yeah, it might not be solvable. But it's like the vast majority of people don't want to poison the water. But we're structured in a way that the people who are willing to do that tend to rise to the top. Like the most power-hungry people tend to get power, and then we end up with results like this. So it's a conundrum that I haven't been able to figure out. So I don't know. It's yeah. That doesn't mean people are angels, but it means that like the majority of people can make good decisions. It's just that gets intercepted and undermined. So even if you had utopia, over time, the power-hungry people would be in charge and things would be a lot worse. That's the message I tend to see from history, and it makes me wonder if there's a way to prevent that. But I don't know. It seems like yes, but only for a certain amount of time. Let's see. Okay, so more questions. Lost my spot. Okay. Do you think you have a mental image of the kind of person that watches your videos, or is it something you don't think about? Not exactly. However, I do have an image of who my target demographic is. I might have mentioned this before. There was an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000, I think it was Swamp Diamonds, where the movie had kind of I wouldn't say intense exactly, but it had kind of an off vibe to it. And they were talking about that in between the break from watching the movie. And they're saying, well, it's like a fever dream, Joel, or they're saying it's like you're low on sleep and they're saying it's like you're slow on sleep and you just got off a 12-hour shift at Arby's and you ate something that didn't quite agree with you. And I was thinking, like, yes, that person. The person who's gotten off a 12-hour shift at Arby's or something like that, and they're hoping for something to watch that's going to take their mind off of things and, like, you know, has a fair chance of, like, delivering some entertainment that they can kind of relax to. And I'm thinking, like, that. So somebody in that position, that I feel like that's my target demographic. Like, that's who I want to aim for. Doesn't mean you have to be working a 12-hour shift. Yeah, someone's saying, wow, legit me. Well, that's why I want to get more for you so that, you know, when you finish your shift and come back, and I know how that is, like your brain's just fried and you're just hoping to maybe end the day in a nice way. And then it's like, okay, here's a real weird video talking about video games. Okay, sure, let's give it a shot. Like, and then as you're watching this, you're like, what is this? Like, and then you're just kind of intrigued by what you're watching. You may not even be that interested in the game, but hopefully I can present it in a way that it's like you're just kind of going deeper and deeper into it. And you're finding that, yeah, you're hopefully finding this intriguing or amusing. So, like, I'm imagining somebody who they haven't even bothered taking like their work uniform off. You know, they're like still in like fast food clothes or something like that, and just sitting on a couch watching this or a chair. So yeah, that's sort of who I have in mind for my target audience. So because like I've been there with certain jobs, and you're really keeping your fingers crossed that what you're gonna watch in your limited time isn't gonna be garbage, and that like this is amusing to you. And so that's what I hope to hand you with stuff like Game Dungeon. So, so I'm saying, dude, stop. Okay. Well then, I, at least some of my audience fits the bill for that. So. I, I hope to keep delivering for that for that demographic. So, just your brain's kind of fried, and you're hoping for something good. How often is Ross's game list updated? I've been dropping the ball on that for a while, but I've still been keeping notes. It'll have a big update before too long, maybe within the week. So, uh, oh yeah, this is one I had to think about, but I just got distracted. Another stream question: favorite tacked-on multiplayer to a single-player game? Maybe the chat has some good suggestions. I'm sure there's some good answers, because it's like I'm sure there's ones that like this feels really unnecessary, but it's like the mentality was at the time is that it had to have multiplayer. Probably late '90s, early 2000s were probably the prime time for that sort of thing. Oh yeah, Mass Effect. Yeah, I'm saying Mass Effect 3. Yeah, that's a decent candidate for that, because it's like Mass Effect's whole thing was just trying to have like a big story-oriented RPG saga, you know? System Shock 2 and multi... I didn't even know... So he's saying System Shock 2. I'd have to confirm that. I didn't even remember that having multiplayer. Oh yeah, somebody's saying, have I considered that the Game Dungeon was D&D multiplayer game rather than a single player? Yeah, I did think of that. However, there's way too much story and cutscenes for that. You know, for it to be for to bring up the argument. Well, it's a multiplayer. Like Quake 3, you can make that argument. Like, oh, I'm playing bots, but it's not very satisfying single player. Okay, yeah, you can play a single player, but that game is obviously oriented for multiplayer. Same for Unreal Tournament. Like, when you're having lots of story and lots of cutscenes and stuff that kind of feels like a single player experience, you can't bust out that argument. It's like, well, it's meant for multiplayer. I guess the Secret World can, but the Secret World's kind of a weird case. Yeah, yeah, because if it's meant for multiplayer, usually if you're multiplayer, you're talking with your friends or communicating with other people, you know, and the story just kind of gets in the way with the pacing and that sort of thing. And we have a slot machine icon here for some reason. Okay, somebody's saying System Shock 2 has co-op okay, co-op. Well, that's a little different. So I was saying Rage. I didn't realize Rage had multiplayer. Gears of War, maybe? Well, Gears of War, it sounded like they were going for both, you know, with like a single player campaign and like putting some thought into multiplayer. But yeah, Mass Effect, that felt very unnecessary. I didn't realize Dead Space 2 had multiplayer. Okay, yeah, that's another candidate. I didn't yeah, see, a lot of these, like, I just didn't, my brain just completely threw it in the trash that this game had multiplayer, because I played it like way past when it came out and I just wasn't even thinking about it. So I'm not even aware of, well, somebody's saying Fear, but no, Fear's multiplayer was pretty good until it just got overrun by hacking or exploits and stuff. No, Fear is another one where they kind of, it could have been better, but like, it felt like a good effort on both fronts with the single player and the multiplayer. I did play some multiplayer Fear. That's true. Deus Ex and multiplayer. Yeah, that's another one that felt kind of tacked on. So somebody's saying Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I heard Assassin's Creed 2, or maybe it was Brotherhood, actually had an interesting multiplayer mode where it involved like some, what's the word? Damn, I can't think of the word. I want to say deception, but it was something age to it. Not espionage. I'm forgetting the word. But yeah, it was like a hide and seek mode. So that sounded interesting. I never played it, but. Or somebody's saying Unreal Gold. Well, Unreal Original, I think, had multiplayer in it, but that was another kind of thing where yeah, it was a little tacked on, but it wasn't like so out of place for the time. Because I mean, it's still kind of a FPS shooter type thing, and it worked well enough for a deathmatch setting. But yeah, I've Overlord. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I've purged the memory of so many of these games that have multiplayer that I just literally don't even remember it. So many of the, like I did remember for Deus Ex, although wasn't Deus Ex multiplayer added on in a patch or something? It might have been. Yeah, that seemed like totally unnecessary to me. But I mean, I guess there's some element to it with like the augmentations give it some multiplayer appeal. But see, that's the thing. The single player experience survives all this stuff. The multiplayer doesn't. So it's like you really gotta. I feel like it's really worth putting thought into multiplayer if you're gonna make a multiplayer game, because it's harder to. That's something where it's harder to keep that going, you know. And of course, 100 times harder with games as a service. What about Serious Sam? Well, yeah, Serious Sam's multiplayer might not have been that great, but it's not so out of place for the time because it's still like an action shooter, you know. So it's saying Half-Life 2 Deathmatch. Well, that kind of worked well. I'd say that kind of worked well, though, because, I mean, it's just Deathmatch, but the stuff like the gravity gun, you can use it more offensively to kind of get a little more out of it. So, I mean, the gameplay was all right. Was Warcraft 2 originally intended for multiplayer? I think so. But I think it was like over IPX or IP at the time. I forget. You could look that up. Yeah, and Warcraft 2 had like a BattleNet revision later. I'm pretty sure Warcraft 2 predates BattleNet. I could be wrong, though. I think BattleNet's, it might have started with Diablo. Not sure. Yeah, Diablo's multiplayer was wonky, but it was interesting. I remember a common. There was a troll tactic that well, Diablo got overrun too by hacks where you could spoof items, so there were other hacks that people got through, so you could kind of get any equipment you wanted in multiplayer. But I remember there was a troll thing that I did in Diablo a couple times that it's where when you got matched in Diablo, it would try to match you by where your level was. So if you're like level 3, you're going to be with other level 3 players. So what I would do is try to, if I wanted to be a kind of a troll about it, sometimes people would like sort of steal your portals. So, and I remember that kind of annoyed me where I'd be playing and then they come in and they attack things and steal loot I was doing. So this bugged me. So what I started doing is I joined servers and I'd, let's say I'm level 3, so I'm just early on in the game, and I would start speed running it. I would just try to find the exit, try to avoid the enemies, go down as far as I could, just keep going farther and farther and farther until it feels like I'm gonna die if I just, it's feeling so precarious now. Like I'm just like one hit, I might die, or like 2 hits, that's it. And then I'd wait for them to just start closing in on me. Then I'd cast a town portal and then get out of there. And then wait for somebody to hijack my portal. And then they would go in, and I remember this. And the thing is, if you died to another player, you still kept all your stuff. If you died to the enemies, you lost everything. In other words, it was still down there. You had to go back and get it. And I remember seeing these comments like, "Oh my God, like I lost all my stuff. Help, please!" Like, so I was being kind of a bastard, but it came across from annoyance from other players, kind of crashing the game I was doing. So I kind of overcompensated there. So because these level 3 characters would be going down, and then there's like a level 12, and then they're surrounded by monsters going through my portal, and then they're like level 12, and it just can kill them almost immediately. So I killed a few players like that, but it was sort of like I created a trap. If you weren't trying to hijack my game, then you'd be safe, but. It was fun using that as an exploit. Let's see. Next question. Oh yeah, they're asking about creating a separate audio track of these video chats and putting it on Audibles or Spotify. I mean, that's the sort of thing where like maybe I could work with like a volunteer and they could handle it. I just don't. That's like a perfect example of something where it's like, this is low priority. I should just spend more time on the videos or like trying to finishing one of these other projects I'm working on. And it's kind of ongoing. And however, the chat recommended, something I mentioned before, is I hope this isn't against the terms of service, but you can there's software out there. Maybe I shouldn't name ones that I use just in case it is, but you can just convert a YouTube video to audio and download as an MP3. I do that for stuff like when I go exercise, I just want to listen to, and it's just somebody talking. I take no offense if you want to do that to my videos. So, yeah, if you can't find the name of it, you can email me or something. I don't know if I want to say the exact names of it because maybe this gets me in trouble on YouTube if I say it. But on the Reddit, people gave some decent answers for it. Let's see. That it'll just download the stream and convert it to MP3. So let's see, what are your thoughts on VR chat as a platform for exploring interesting worlds in VR? Maybe the chat can correct me on this, but I have a hang up that I literally just can't turn this off in my head, that if it's online only, what if VR chat has to shut down someday? See, I feel like, I understand online gives it a lot of the value, but it seems like you should be able to like save that world to your computer and run everything offline. And I remember looking into that, and it wasn't obvious to me how to do that. If you can do that, then great. But if not, then that seems like a real vulnerability to me, that like, yeah, it'd be neat to see the worlds, but then if it gets shut down someday, then okay, if the VR chat servers just went down, but you would save these worlds that you would, does it give you the option to be, could you still run VR chat offline, and then if you had planned ahead, save some worlds and go visit them, would that still work? Or, let's see. Okay, well, I have to wait for the chat to respond, but I mean, if so, then great. I should maybe look into it more. And if not, it's like, well, I'm not really that interested in like VR chat social stuff. It's just, I don't know. It does. I'd rather have like an adventure in a game, or see these, have a tour of like these real exotic places in VR. So I don't know, but I feel like VR is yeah. I feel like VR chat is it's a perfect litmus test for how far you can expect like what metaverse, yeah, Facebook's metaverse to extend organically. I mean, maybe if VR chat had the resources, yeah, I guess they call it meta now. Facebook did, then they could, maybe rope in a few more people. But whatever the size of that audience is, that's about the size you should expect for a competitor like Metaverse. So, yeah, somebody's saying to think you log into their servers. So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, there are. But that might be the best way at the moment to see some VR worlds. Like if there's been ports to games, that might be the only easy way to get to it. Like ports of games, game levels, that sort of thing. That might be the only easy way to get to it in VR at the moment. So it's probably worth me looking into it some more. Let's see. Okay, I might start getting pickier with the questions now, but what games would you like to see either get a full-on remake or enhanced HD remaster? Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's probably some more. Well, I'm going to be a little biased in the sense that if I've already played through the game, that kind of just makes me not as interested unless I felt like there was just so much there that that it'd be worth it with the remake anyway. Yeah, yeah, and they're talking about like the Black Mesa Resident Evil remake. Yeah, well, okay. Some that come to mind, I think I mentioned before, is I'd like if we're just talking like a remake. So we're kind of keeping the same beats of the game, but we're updating it with some modern decisions, like the good modern decisions, not the just monetize everything decisions. I would say, well, the original Grand Theft Auto and all the top-down Grand Theft Autos. I think that would breathe a hell of a lot of life into them if you could play them Grand Theft Auto 3 and onward style, where you have the third-person camera, can run around, because then it'd be like its own new world, really. Let's see, some other remakes that I haven't played. Yeah, I guess stuff from the, like, the rougher, like, 90s games. Some of those stuff where, like, the graphics are kind of rough, so that the difference between, like, a remake and the original is actually going to be pretty stark and make it kind of worth it. Stuff where you feel like it had a lot of potential. What? Oh yeah, that was one. Yeah, that's one I would want a bit of a redesign too, but maybe like the marathon games. I only played a little bit of the original, and like it just got pretty maze-like pretty fast for me. I was just kind of lost and just wasn't sure which way to go. So maybe if I could have level design that was like a little more. Yeah. Maybe there's a term for this. I don't know what it is, but like, okay, people talk about boomer shooters. I tend to think of like 90s games like, Duke Nukem 3D or again, Doom or again, Marathon. And I never really liked the maze-like element of those levels where you just can't figure out where the hell to go. I actually can like kind of complex levels where it's a bit of a maze, but it's like you're figuring. It's like there's so much stuff you just get disoriented, not because, oh, well, this corridor looks like this one, and you go left, right, left, right, stuff like that. So I like the design a little bit later than that. And I don't know what you call those kinds of shooters. I don't mind the boomer shooter aesthetic, with sprites and 3D, but Boomer had other games in FPS. The best thing called Gen X shooters. Yeah, well, I'm a little bit younger than Gen X, so I don't know. It's yeah, but I feel like Marathon that is like a minor cult following. Hey, you could have two modes. You could have something that's very faithful to the original, and they just have like updated textures and like, mouse aiming and models and that sort of thing. And then you could have one that's like a reimagining that tries to get the same sort of spirit and keeps the story or whatever the same, but the level design isn't just time to get lost, so also I need to finish it, and maybe this is one where maybe I don't really want a remake. I just want a few sort of quality of life features. But I started playing the game Normality a while back, and I was enjoying it. It has like Doom engine level graphics, but it has a cool atmosphere. And sometimes the dated graphics in that, maybe that kind of added to the atmosphere a little bit. But I would like, mouse aiming, widescreen, just sort of modern quality of life features to that. Maybe I'd want that more than a remake. I don't know. Yeah, you generally want remakes for games where something was really rough around the edges and just you don't miss it, you know. Yeah, remake all of 2000's first-person shooters that are just dark or all brown. Yeah, I don't like tinting. I like being able to get rid of that, but yeah, that's actually it seems a little pointless to me remaking Resident Evil 4. I mean, because like the graphics on that were pretty good for the time, and like if you get mods, you can get it looking pretty well. But I guess that whereas remaking 2 and 3, yeah, there's a big tech jump between those games, and like the tank controls and like so yeah, those were worthy candidates for being remade. It's the right air. Oh yeah, that's one I never ended up playing. Maybe Dino Crisis could use a remake. That might be a good. Yeah, somebody's saying remake Dungeon Siege. Yeah, that would be. Dungeon Siege could benefit from like modern graphics and some quality of life changes. Maybe you could bring back the modding for it too. That would be great. Yeah, modding's kind of rare these days, I guess, for bigger titles. Yeah, Normality is one where I definitely was enjoying it. It's just like I got diverted from something and never got back to it, but I still have my save game somewhere. So that's one I'll definitely finish. But yeah, stuff from the 90s is really prime for remake, because then you have the roughness of the graphics and some of the controls and maybe things they didn't do well the first time around. But yeah, I feel like if the graphics are good and the gameplay's good, then maybe they don't, or the graphics can still have a good art style and be dated, and sometimes it just depends. Sometimes the old look kind of adds to the charm, and it kind of makes it feel like you're sort of dusting off this relic, that kind of like, oh, well, what's inside this? This is different, like. Whereas other times it's like the enhancement doesn't really do so much. So, okay, well, I'll move on to some more questions. Any games that you would like to cover but can't, like bad emulation or incompatibility issues? Not yet, but I'm gonna talk more about this in a future video. The worst that usually ends up happening, like I think actually I was wrong about the Black Mirror. I just remembered it incorrectly. I can't force anti-aliasing on that. Those actually were 2D images, even though they look 3D. But like Polaris Snowcross, that one felt like a defeat for me, that I couldn't force anti-aliasing on it, and I used to be able to. Though I've been able to since then on a different copy of that. So. But yeah, that would probably be the most that would happen, is like I just can't do anti-aliasing, and I used to be able to. But so I'm saying dual screen, triple screen, ultra wide. What's your preferred workflow versus your ideal workflow regarding monitors? I don't think I've ever done a lot of work before on like a multiple monitor. I mean, I occasionally hooked it up, but I don't know. I mean, I have moved to an ultra wide monitor, but that's been more about the immersion for me. Like it for workflow, I'd say it's helped a little bit, not dramatically. Like if you have good software for organizing where your windows are, you're getting that. That does more for you than a larger monitor, in my opinion. Up to a point. I mean, sometimes if you have programs that are like really bulky and they need the extra resolution, that can make a difference. But like the extra horizontal space is nice on this. The Well, and even then, it was kind of weird for me at first, but I got used to it, and now I like the effect better. But like before I moved to it, I was thinking in some games, not all of them, but someone, I would think, I wish this was just like a little bit wider. Oh, excuse me, I had a bit of a hiccup. A little bit wider. It's like, and now when I look at it, it's like I just don't even think about that. It's just like great. I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just kind of getting encompassed in the game. So, yeah. Well, I mean, when I did move to this, I also got the software Display Fusion, and that gives you a lot of options for how you want to organize your windows. So I have a few hotkeys now. If I want to move a window to the half of the screen or to the third of the screen, or have it centered, that sort of thing. So that can help a lot. I probably will have a better idea of this once I get deeper into the movie and spend more time in Unreal Engine, because that's one that does want a lot of space with all the sub windows that it has. But it kind of depends on what you do, because most of my work, it's kind of like done in a serial fashion where I'm just kind of focusing on this, then I'm moving on to this, then I'm moving on to this. Whereas some people, they do work where they have to constantly compare things or go back and forth between windows. And sometimes I need to do that, but not most of the time. Or the times I most need to do that are when I'm moving files around and I already have the dual panel in Directory Opus that I'm using anyway. So I've been doing that for so long anyway, of having like split panels for file browsing and moving files, that it's just, I don't even think about it anymore. But so, see, we're on different, okay, I'm gonna clap back here. So somebody's saying in the comments, let's see, that they're saying their advice would be that a high refresh rate is great, but ultra wide is less important. All depends on what you want. If you're a competitive gamer, yeah, go refresh rate for sure. If you want more, or just maybe you really hate 60 hertz and you want higher, that's your preference. For me personally, well, the monitor I got, I would have taken higher refresh rate if it existed in these specs, but it caps out at 60 hertz still. And I figured, well, that's okay. It doesn't bother me too much running it at 60 hertz. Whereas I really like this extra width and the size and the resolution bump. So for the games I can run at that speed, it's great. I love it. And I mean, I've run games. I used to have a CRT that did much. I think I had a CRT that went up to 200 because during that time, it was, you wanted that extra refresh rate for the shutter glasses. So refresh rate is extremely important for that. So I've run games at higher refresh rates. I mean, I know it's nicer, but it's not, I got sort of used to 60, and so many games are frame capped at 60 anyway, especially once you start playing older ones. So it's, whereas if you're a big competitive gamer, you're playing online all the time, or you do like lots of really fast Twitch shooter stuff, then yeah, you probably do want the refresh rate. So I'd say it just depends on your preferences. But if you want you can't get them quite at the specs I have, but you can get pretty high. If you want the best of both worlds, I have seen high refresh rate ultra wides also. Well, I say the best. That also depends on your preference. Like if you're very competitive, I still say you may actually not want ultra wide, because I have found that, like, if you're doing a shooter and like you're really zoned in, it takes like slightly, for me at least, it takes like slightly more brain power to process everything. Whereas if you have like a smaller window, like 16:9, you can kind of focus fire your attention even more. And I saw a not very scientific video on this on YouTube where a guy tried playing an ultra. He was playing Call of Duty and he had like these. He was checking how many kills he had from sessions or something, and he had like a series of 10 on ultra wide, and a series of 10 on 16:9, and he did a little bit better on 16:9. So 16:9 for sure lets you hone in your attention slightly more. For me, ultra wide, it's all about immersion. However, it can help workflow also. It's because there are times when I want like a text document here, files here, and then another window here, and I'm going between them all. It's like that, but yeah, just do what, and again, I haven't really done multi-monitor stuff. I guess if you're doing like a lot of flight sims or racers, you might want to go like full multi-monitor also to get like just maximum peripheral vision, that sort of thing. Yeah, I was kind of curious about it, like my monitor is 2.37 to 1 aspect ratio now. And I was kind of curious where that came from. It's interesting how it's just like, just the first person historically to do something dictates how so many things happen. Oh, I'll have to look at this comment in a minute about Mage Knight Apocalypse. Well, apparently the reason why you have, they vary a little bit. Some are 2.35, some are 2.4 to 1. They're generally called 21:9 monitors. I think technically mine's 64:27 ratio. But where that comes from is from movies. But where that came from was movies originally wanting to go like just wide as hell. I forget when the time period was. Might have been in the 40s or somewhere around there, maybe 50s. Where before that, movies were kind of 4:3 aspect ratio. No, might have been later actually, but they were trying to do something. Yeah, like television. It might have been the 50s, maybe, or 60s. Televisions were starting to emerge in the home, so they were trying to do something that would still kind of wow people going to the theater, and they tried to make it as wide as they could, and so that they originally made it even wider. So I think like stuff like Ben-Hur is just I forget the aspect ratio. It's huge. Gone with the Wind might be another one, but I think they found there was some workaround where they basically made it as wide as they possibly could for the type of lens they were using for the cameras at the time, and without it getting distorted too much. Even then, it still got distorted a little bit. But what they found later was that they were able to like save some money or efficiency in the processing if they were able to sort of combine the sound recording on the same reel. And in order to do that, that sort of cut into the widescreen space a little bit, and that's why, and that led to roughly a 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio. And that is why so many movies and now ultra-wide monitors have that ratio, because they decided, oh, you know what? We can put the sound on the same reel as these really wide movies back in, I don't know what the year was. I think it was probably 50s or something. CinemaScope, that was 21:9. Ben-Hur was 2.66 to 1, or even 2.75 to 1. Yeah, it varied a little bit. So because they decided to combine the audio for the filming some 50, 70 years ago, that's why more like 70 probably. That's why the monitors are in this size. And actually, that's why 16:9, I found out the reason why that aspect ratio exists is because they apparently did an analysis of all the different aspect ratios in movies and like 4x3 stuff and everything, and just overlaid them on top of each other. And the shape that made was roughly a 16:9, and that's 1.77, and that's why like it was basically meant to be like the ultimate compromise between all formats. So that's why 16:9 is what it is. So it's weird, but I'd say run whatever you prefer. You know, the people insisting it's this way and better, not necessarily. It depends on the person. Again, my wife runs 16:10 because she was thinking 16:9 might have been a little wide for her. So it's but yeah, I don't regret the ultra wide, though there was an acclimation phase. There's definitely that. But I'm still gonna make all the videos 16:9 because that's what the vast majority of people have and are gonna be watching this on. So would you ever consider a follow-up video to some of the non-game engine videos? Yeah, I'm gonna have it. We're talking about the wish list. Yeah, maybe the wish list. The dream software, if I'm lucky. Okay. Yeah, if it happens. I'm definitely want to do one for the games as a service video and for the GUI video, but those have been kind of keep getting kicked down the road. But those are the two I want to make, especially the GUI one. The games as a service one, I hope to have more to report when I make one for that. What are examples of games based on real or contemporary wars that you actually like? Geez, I don't know. I mean, I'm not even sure why, but it's like for me, when you make games on real wars, it's not because I'm thinking like, I mean, I understand how some people are sensitive to this, where it's like, oh, well, these are real events that happen and like they have sensitivity to it. For me, it's more like, I know what happened. I know how the war ended, you know, or if I don't, I can find out pretty easily. So I kind of like having, the thing I like about fictional stuff is there's more stuff on the table. Yeah, I guess I'd be more interested if this was like fiction, like an alternate history. I'd be more interested in that, where I don't know how this war is going to end because all bets are off now, or it could flow different ways, you know. But most of it's like a historical setting, so it's like, well, if I really find like the environment or the setting interesting, then, and I guess on that note, I guess I kind of like the Revolutionary War, Civil War, to some extent, maybe World War II in parts of Europe. Not really because of the wars, but just because I like that setting of like more kind of wilderness and greenery in the countryside, that sort of thing. But I'm certain there are better YouTubers out there if you're big into war games that can give you much more, much better views on like the gameplay and like how it feels, if it's too arcadey or not, that sort of thing. Let's see. Yeah, somebody's asking, when I have traveled, where were some of your favorite locations? Well, okay, I kind of got dragged on some trips with my parents, some places. I mean, in the U.S. I've lived in, you know, in Virginia, parts of Pennsylvania, Louisiana. I was in Los Angeles for a while when I worked at Machinima. But yeah, I've seen a lot of states in between, though. I mean, not thoroughly, but for favorite locations, you know, this has to, I don't know, I'm kind of, see, I mean, it's like I said earlier, part of me never grew up. And when I'm thinking of my favorite locations, like the first thing that jumps to mind is like amusement parks or water parks or stuff like that, where you could have those at like many different places around the U.S. or the world. But I'm trying to think of stuff that was, well, I guess, Oh yeah, I also lived in Tennessee. Let's see. I mean, I guess there's some pretty impressive like nature areas for where I have been, especially in like Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, where you just have you have stuff there where this would be a good place to film a fantasy game, fantasy movie, that sort of thing, because you'll have just like these giant waterfalls or big rock formations or trails of snake all around. But like I grew up mostly in Virginia, and my dad would drag me on a lot of hikes, which I didn't really like that much at the time. Though later, after I grew up, I started sort of part of my brain started craving that to some degree. But even as a kid, my favorite one was at this place called Devil's Marble Yard, where you hike a few miles in, and then it's just like a mile or so of just this giant marble boulders everywhere that you can just climb on and just kind of keep going up. I'm sure you can find pictures of it. Maybe I'll link to a picture of it after when I do the description of the chat. I remember, even as a kid not wanting to go on a hike, that one stood out to me because it was just like a climbing thing. But yeah, when I think of all my favorite places that I've traveled a bit to, like first thought is amusement parks and water parks, or stuff like paintball or ropes courses or things like that, where it's not that unique to the area. It's just a fun sort of man-made construction. But let's see. They're asking, to what degree do you think your hardware dictates the content on your channel? For example, do you think you would feature newer or more graphically advanced games if you had a state-of-the-art computer? Not much. In fact, if anything, I feel like judging from some audience responses I've seen in the past, it seems like I've been kind of neglecting the older stuff lately. The next few game dungeons I have planned are all older than Mage Knight Apocalypse, and I got to catch up some more on Commodore 64. So I mean, that affected it a little more when I was starting off with Game Dungeon, but I just, again, I want to gravitate towards the stuff that like not a lot of people are mentioning, or not a lot of people are mentioning, or else that I felt like haven't been. There's more analysis that could be done on that's a much higher ratio of that sort of thing in older games, because there's a lot of weird stuff out there that just fell between the cracks. And I do hope, depending on how the editing help goes, I do hope to make more stuff similar to like that Star Trek episode that was sort of a one-off. It just depends if I have like a train of thought stream that just keeps going, then I'll want to do that. But I don't really have much Star Trek planned, but again, if the right thought enters my head, then I might. So yeah, and see that Star Trek one, I think I wanted to make that, but then maybe I forgot about it. But then the pandemic just sort of reactivated again. That I was like, okay, I have to make this now. So, do you think it's possible for there to be unintentional cults? What do you think about informal cults? Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's depends on how you're defining it. I mean, if you're defining it like in the sense of like, I said the cult of Sonic, or like a cult classic of people who like really like a certain game or movie or fandom or something, then for sure you can have intentional ones. But if you're having the kind where like, no, we want people to, I guess you could have a few that are intentional, where it starts off with just a few like a group of friends like living at a commune or something, and then it kind of builds from there. They invite some more friends, and then they maybe find a way to sustain it with some farming or something, and then they get more and more people, and then one person starts who has like their own vision starts stepping up. Yeah, it could happen. I mean, what do you think about informal cults? Well, I think informal cults, like like I mentioned earlier, are great because like let's say I'm just a more casual fan of something, well then the informal cult is gonna hook me up with like anything I could want for the game. It's like, oh well, how do I? Well, hey, I mentioned earlier, like with the Final Fantasy stuff. For Final Fantasy, certainly has their own sort of mini cults. Maybe since I'm bringing this up, we can get like a field of view slider for the game, or something like that, or you get a restoration of the game to get it running on of old games to running on modern systems, or you know, or let's say I like the music to something people have like a cult fandom of. Well, then those cultists are gonna kind of hunt down and really get the good stuff. So yeah, I think kind of like media fan cults are great because it's like, oh, good. Here are these people who are into this so much deeper than I ever will, and they can share the good stuff with me. So yeah, I'm happy for that sort of thing. Well, hell, maybe, yeah. In fact, I can't say I can't say I was like surprised or like super disappointed, but I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a better texture upscaling at the time for Sonic Heroes when I played it, just because I was hoping it's like, oh man, maybe we can get a better skybox for the fans, but that one didn't. That one didn't quite get the attention. But maybe since I've made the video, someone is looking into it, because that's like the one area where the upscaling really pays off, in my opinion, is for the skybox, because it encompasses so much of the vision. Ross, what's your take on impending Mickey Mouse copyright finally expiring? I wasn't aware of that, but do you think it's a sign of degrading grip corporations have on the copyright system? No, not at all. Sorry. Or will it be the spark for the next yet another copyright extension? Yeah, it could happen. And they're saying, what's the optimal time for copyright in your opinion? That one's harder. Like, it's almost like I'm not even sure that's the right way to look at it, because it's kind of like, it's not the same thing exactly. But it's kind of like people. I think it's called like with the Libra software effort, where they want just all software to be free. And my attitude on that is that I like the sentiment of that, but it's like, if you're really gonna have that, then you need to solve other problems too. Like for example, like someone needs to make a living making nothing but free software, like reliably, then, like, or just their basic needs are just met, with housing, food, water, that's medical help, healthcare, that sort of thing. And then if you have that, then yeah, maybe you can make the argument to just have it all be free. And I feel like copyright extension and stuff like that sort of spills over into that, or maybe like the way we have it set up, because the main reason to have copyright is if like an author creates something, like they write a book, that they can kind of like make a living from that, and that like they're not immediately like let's say you write a fantasy book and then it has some popularity, and then next thing you know, a publishing house has paid off a higher profile author to just write the sequel to yours, or extend it, and now they're selling it everywhere, and then like you're still struggling to make enough money to pay rent or something like that. So it gives you like a degree of protection, but it's like I can imagine the system being kind of handled totally differently too. So I mean, I don't know. For sure, like even then, I think like a lifetime might be kind of excessive. So, it I mean, like just off the top of my head, I would want to. If I just had to pick a number just off the top of my head, there's pros and cons to it. Let's say maybe 20 years or something. And then after that, it's not like you lose the rights. It's just that other people can jump in on it. I think I think if you haven't been able to get your act together with promoting it in that amount of time, I don't think more time's likely to help. But, well, even then, I think you could have, yeah, even then, there's not really a problem with that because I'm thinking, like, let's say, like you had something like Harry Potter or something. And like after 20 years, like the Harry Potter franchise is still going, but now it's not, the individual instances are still copyrighted. It's just that the larger intellectual property, oh no, I guess they would expire. Yeah. Okay, yes, it gets complicated, but you could have something like that where maybe the core intellectual property has expired, but the individual instances haven't. So Harry Potter and let's say like after 20 years or maybe even sooner, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, that's still copyrighted, but the Harry Potter universe is not. So in other words, and if like J.K. Rowling or whoever want to write a new story, like Harry Potter and the Carnival of Madness or something, let's say they write that, well then that book is copyrighted and that one starts fresh. However, someone else can also write a competing Harry Potter novel and that one's copyrighted. So it's like you don't have to clamp down everything, if you see what I'm saying. Like you could keep the instance copyright to go a lot longer, and I actually think that would be more reasonable. But then you could open up like the larger stuff where okay, you can use these characters and in this setting, and that sort of thing. So I don't. Yeah, I don't know, but at the same time, there's, yeah, I mean, I kind of want more stuff to enter the public faster, but there's a real give and take on it. But, so it's hard to say, but yeah, if I just had to guess blindly, I'd say 20 years. So, but yeah, but then some people could still be making their living off something they wrote 20 years ago or music they composed, and like they need that income. And then if anybody can sell it, that's just like a punch in the stomach. So I don't know, but then it all goes back to just having to support yourself. It's like the more people that can support themselves, the more lax you can get with these laws. Okay, that went on longer than I meant for it to. Yeah. I was gonna say the last thing I remember is when I had the interview or the chat the Nick Rakita's Law Channel. At one point, he was talking to the audience. It was saying that like the people who are like anti-copyright and don't want it to and want to see it go away, that is never ever going to happen with Disney existing. He said something like that to that extent. Like, and I believe it's not that he was necessarily against this. He's just saying reality that like as long as Disney has weight to throw around, you are never going to see improvement on copyright extension. Like, and so that coming from a lawyer, that probably carries some weight to it. So just thought I'd pass that along. Let's see. I have not played the Legend of Grimrock games. I think aren't those kind of turn-based combat? I think, like it sounds like they're kind of imitating a lot of like old style dungeon crawlers, but with like some quality of life stuff. But I just don't like turn-based combat. It just slows down things for me. Oh yeah, well here, might as well. Speaking of combat, I might as well state this so people can just link to this with like a timestamp later. Apparently, I'm not sure I got it 100% wrong, but apparently I got things partially wrong on the Mage Knight Apocalypse episode where I was talking about World of Warcraft. And it sounds like I got it right for the time that Mage Knight Apocalypse came out. So that was like 2007. And they're saying Modern Warcraft World of Warcraft, it's like it sounds like you can kind of keep one combo going and then another combo going, then another one, and then another. I, I've heard this described as like piano playing combat, where it's like you hit one, then hit another one, so you don't have to stand around and wait so much. But at the same, yeah, one person was like, they're saying in the comments they were so disappointed by me and how could I get this so wrong, and maybe that's the case that it goes faster now once you go higher level up in the game. However, I would still venture to guess that that's still slower than I like. Like even like if you're a like max level World of Warcraft player, it's still probably slower than I like. Like it was like I mentioned in the video, I was making a Blood Rain comparison. It is modern World of Warcraft combat as fast as Blood Rain, like because that's pretty fast. You slice up the Nazis fast, shoot them like you can go through people fast in that game. So that's why I say I could have. Now, if it is, then World of Warcraft's really changed, and you're right, I was just outdated. But that's why I say I might have gotten it half wrong, where it is faster than what I'm used to, but it's still too slow for me. So you're saying you're basically always mashing buttons. Well, okay, maybe. Okay, Grimrock isn't turn-based. All right, I'll look into it then. I'm surprised then. I thought, okay, like it's more like kind of Diablo-ish, but like first-person perspective and grid orient. Yeah, maybe I could look into that. I mean, if I did get it wrong, I'll own up to it, especially in a follow-up. It's just I've noticed for some things. Well, I'll address a few more of that in the next follow-up. But for some things, it's like I've noticed the internet can be terrible with nuance. So I don't always, unless it's just super obvious, I'm dead wrong on something. It's not always. It's like I'm right or wrong. It's more that like I lean towards this side, and then like the internet's not good with nuance. It tends to be more binary, all or nothing on things. So, why don't I like turn-based combat so much? Well, I was gonna save this for a video, but I'll explain it. It makes me wait. I don't like waiting on the game. The game should wait on me, not the other way around. You know. But I mean, that's the core of it. But it's It also compared to like normal fights, it's just so much slower, and it kind of just feels like I don't know. It just takes me out of it. Let's see. Do you ever look at the developers' YouTube comments on Game Dungeon? There's quite a lot of them. I guess I missed them because sometimes they come in after I look at the comments, and then I just don't see the update. If somebody wants to make a compilation, you can. What do you think about the fact that some people look up to you, and what do you think about hero worship in games or in general? I guess you could do worse. I mean, okay, for everybody who like really looks up to me, I think you should watch that clip from the 80s BBC of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they're asking this. I mean, I think the clip's on YouTube, but you get a little more. You get a little more context watching the video or reading the book. But I think they asked the psychiatrist to analyze Zaphod Beeblebrox, and he's saying, "Well, Zaphod's just this guy, you know." And that's how I feel about me. So it's, I also saw a comic where this guy, I think it might have been Saturday Morning Breakfast cereal comic, I'm not sure, where you see him, he's cutting his toenails, but he's kind of biting them off with his mouth. So he has like he's sitting on a chair and like holding his leg up to his mouth, like biting the thumbnails. And somebody walks in on him and he says, "Don't think of me as a hero." So I may be a little bit better than that, but it's Yeah, I guess you could do worse. I don't really see myself as hero material, but it's I again, I can think of worse. I can think of worse examples. As for hero worship in general, I mean, I don't know. It's, I mean, you probably shouldn't go too deep into it, but it's because you can kind of get, because I mean, you can get sort of like lost in you can get kind of lost in perspective as opposed to reality, you know. But and that can kind of, yeah, it's not good to get too untethered from reality, but and I guess you can kind of back the wrong horse too, where they end up being a nut. Oh yeah, like I really don't pay much attention at all to celebrity gossip, but I saw there was like this, somebody posted this response. I think like right now there's some sort of scandal going on with Ezra Miller, like the Flash actor, and like he's like on the run and may have done some like kidnapped or like a minor or something. But like somebody posted this. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the links too. But somebody posted this link where as a response it says, well, like hello, where they showed this person behind this counter saying, oh, hello, Ezra Miller, welcome to Hawaii. And then it cuts off, and the person was trying to smash this shatterproof glass, and they ended up like smashing enough of it to work the window open, and then they try to crawl through it to get to the clerk, and then the clerk's trying to run away from them. So yeah, if you pick the hero that you're looking up to like that, that might not be so good. That's why I say you could do worse than me, because I mean, I'm not up to anything crazy that I know of, but, well, no, I mean, okay, well, crazy relative, you know? I mean, I am pretty on board with like wanting the VR worlds that I'm extracting going through stuff or just weird games, but I don't have any scandals planned. So I'm not looking to create like online drama, so that's could work. I would not recommend Freeman as a role model at all. I mean, in fact, I think that came up in a previous chat that like, yeah, like the only thing I would look up to for Freeman is that I guess he is independent and he thinks for himself. So yeah, so you can look up to those traits for Freeman, but Freeman, from Freeman's mind, is a creation for me where I'm just trying to create this really caustic character that's, or volatile, that's just to keep things interesting. So yeah, his job isn't to be a good role model, it's to keep things interesting. So but yeah, I mean, yeah, like I think I mentioned it. I think it was in the Contraption Zach episode. Like I'm not a subscriber to the belief. Yeah, like I think it was in what, the Dark Knight or something like that. They said like you either you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. No, I don't think that necessarily has to be like that. I mean, you can just be kind of chill or nice person your whole life, depending on your personality. I mean, some people don't have that in them, but. Well, I mentioned in the GUI video. I mean, I don't know if I call him a hero necessarily, but from what I know of him, Steve Wozniak's always been a pretty good guy. I mean, he's been at these engineering projects. I think he's like tried to like support some other engineering things and has like a positive outlook on life, that sort of thing. So, I mean, some people are good and just kind of stay good. Others are, others, it's, I don't know, success or fame and go straight to their head. So it just depends. Okay, more questions. Ross, what are your, okay, yeah, chat, feel free to chime in on this one. What are your favorite video game related terminologies? Which ones do you think have the best acronyms? Well, I don't know as many. I was thinking of a few. I mean, some I can kind of use for to apply to real life, and I was thinking of like farming or grind. Those have a lot of use. But I guess grind might be older than that. I mean, farming obviously very old, but I mean, farming in that context tends to be more specific to video games, I believe. But yeah, grind goes way back. That's like, axe on the grind. But I don't know if this is strictly video game related, but I was introduced to it through video games. Is I've heard like the acronym NEET, NEET, and it stands for not in employment, education, or training. And so some games are considered neat games, as in they're going to soak up so much of your time and they're really grindy. So it's meant for people who are just not doing anything else. Like, I've heard some people tell me Warframe is like that. I haven't played it. Let's see. But I thought that's a useful acronym because it's like that describes a real demographic, And I think that's only going to increase in time as we automate more occupations and jobs away. That's why we should try to get on top of that, Okay, from the chat, people are saying Zergling or Zerging. Yeah, I was going to say Zergling is really what Zerging is. That's a rut. Well, Zerging is basically rushing tactic. But I guess Zerging is a little more specific because it's rushing with numbers, because rushing is an older term than that, but Zerging is more rushing with numbers. Nerfing, yeah, that one's really useful. I can use that one sometimes in real life, but yeah, especially to games, that one has a lot of use. NPC, someone's mentioning that. Yeah, you can use that one in real life to some extent. Let's see. Somebody's saying, yeah, they're talking about Path of Exile, the build acronym. They're saying the Herald of Thunder Assassin got abbreviated to Hot Ass in Path of Exile. Yeah, like I've seen that a lot in like an Assassin's Creed. Online, it gets abbreviated to Ass Creed a lot. Yeah, camping, that's another good one. In fact, I think I remember in Counter-Strike seeing someone had their spray of a spray of like some guy like sitting by a campfire holding a hot dog on a stick and like spraying like camper that like he was a happy camper. Let's see. Someone has to go to the eye doctor to fix my vision cone. Well, I hope that's not the problem with my wife for the field of view, but we'll see. Yeah, there's some. I'm trying to think of some other gaming terms. Yeah, because I'll use ones that I like, or else that are very practical. For describing a certain phenomena in games. A friend of mine was caught staring at someone. And he blamed it on auto aim. I did something like that. I remember there was this sort of event at a school, during college, where they were having some sort of kind of party thing, and like some rooms were playing movies, some had one person had like a Halo kind of deathmatch thing going. So I tried it. Halo on the controller, and I was not good at playing with the controller, but I was more familiar with deathmatch combat than the people I was playing with. So it's like I had less skill but more wisdom. So what I did was, or more experience. so I was absolutely looking at their screens because it was split view, and I just sort of I basically started camping and just started putting my face up against a pillar so nobody knew where I was, and then I kind of watched their screen like, okay, yeah, they're coming in my room, and then I would come out and then just shoot them, and kind of go for that. So I did. I think I still wasn't on. I still didn't win the round. I don't think, but I did better than I would have. So. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I was thinking, okay, so I get to see exactly where you are. I'm definitely using that. So, uh, the huntsman item. Well, I'm not familiar with that one. Oh, it's often called Luxman. Well, well, I guess yeah. Well, owning someone that one might have jumped out of gaming terminology. Yeah, because it used to be called. Oh yeah, I gave. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I gave. Yeah, Tyler McVicker has been running a stream where he's in character playing someone from the who's like late '90s gamer, and he's trying to be authentic as possible. So I dropped a bunch of tips for him, and from what I remembered. But yeah, saying like, oh, I owned someone. Later, some people started using lead speak and turning that to PWN, but that happened later. Originally, it was just saying, oh, I own them. So I told him that, and he wasn't aware of that one. So yeah, I guess you have noob. I think that one came from terminology because I think before games it was like newbie or rookie, but I think games turned it into noob. Yeah, they definitely did because from Mortal Kombat, yeah, Mortal Kombat 2 even, the secret character Noob Saibot, that was not a like goof. I mean, it was a goofy name, and that they were spelling the developers' names backwards. But just calling the character Noob, that was just sort of a nonsense name. It didn't mean anything then. At least that's how I remember it. So, yes, yeah. I was trying to. I gave Tyler some. I think I won't tell you everything I told him, but I gave him some tips that should give him a little more street cred, hopefully. Yeah, and I warned him. Yeah, I saw like his original thing. Yeah, I saw his like original announcement on it, and I like had to tell him to like stop saying some things. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll tell him some things Tyler shouldn't have said. Yeah, I'm kind of mutating this into a different answer, but because you can call him out if he does it, put more pressure on him. Because he was saying like, oh, I hope zombies in games becomes a trope, and I don't remember anyone using the word trope back then. Like, I think the setting is like 99 for when he's doing this, and I mean that's something that came. The word might have existed, but there was definitely like you could say a trend or like a common thing in games or something. But I think that kind of emerged later that entered the sort of lexicon, which also wasn't used yet. But yeah, and I also told him like, yeah, don't say things like streaming, don't say, or some other words that he shouldn't say. Uh, well, well, you can maybe message him on Twitter or something if you want to give some tips. The yeah, again, it's not necessarily that the word didn't exist. It's just that nobody would have said that. Or yeah, podcast. That's another one because that came after the iPod. You know. Let's see. Or there's some, well, I remember there was some more terminology that we take more for granted now. But I was well because I kind of have to do a certain amount of this sort of thing already with Freeman's Mind. I try not to give. In fact, I was kind of cutting it a little, slicing it a little thin on mentioning Jackass because that was like 2001 or something. So I'm kind of maybe pushing the envelope a little farther. I was trying to do it for like 2000, but yeah, let's see. Cheese is from StarCraft. I'm not sure. We're saying some. cheese might go back even farther. Like that might predate like gamer culture stuff. Like, because you could say a movie's cheesy or a line's cheesy, and yeah, I guess cheese as a noun. Maybe this is making me hungry. All right, so let's keep moving on then. Let's see, I'll go for a little bit longer, then I'll try and get live questions. Have you watched the original Scream? Yes. If so, what are your thoughts? It was kind of clever. Yeah. Scream's a good movie where it kind of it sort of flirts with breaking the fourth wall in a fun way. So it they're pointing out all these tropes and there was definitely a need for the word trope. Meme wasn't used. That was another word that wasn't used back then for slashers. So it kind of had fun with it. I was never really, I've seen several, but I'm actually not super into slasher movies because I feel like if you've seen one, you've kind of seen them all. Because they kind of follow all these same beats, and it's just, I kind of like not knowing what's going to happen, and with slashers, you can expect a lot. Like, I want to say my favorite slasher is probably a cheat answer, and that would be, Behind the Mask? Like the full title is like The Rise of Leslie Vernon or something. And it's kind of like Scream in that it's like a faux documentary where they're following around like a slasher killer as though this is like a behind the scenes reality show kind of thing. It's funny. It has a lot of good scenes in it. It's a horror comedy for sure. And it's better if you have seen a lot of slashers because you have a little more reference. But even if you haven't, I recommend that one. Yeah. So if you like Scream, for sure you should watch Behind the Mask. Somebody's saying they make good Halloween drinking games. Yeah, I could see slashers being a lot better for like a group or a crowd of people where you can kind of comment. I don't know if it counts as a slasher, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that one's pretty scary. It has a vibe to it for sure. I'm trying to think of like what my favorite slashers would be. Because I've seen a variety of them, but they're okay, but it's not necessarily my favorite. I can honestly, I've seen too much. I can get kind of bored of those. I like it where it's a little more unpredictable. Okay, an Armed and Delirious video, you mentioned harming Disc 5 in a stairway accident while you were carrying it up the stairs. I was moving into dorms for college. This is where that happened. I tripped and I dumped this spindle of it. Thankfully, the damage wasn't too high, but that was not a happy moment, jumping the spindle of disc on the stairs. Okay. I had to stop because I wasn't. I realized at first I thought I didn't know this name, but then I did, and then I didn't know the acronym, but then I realized I did. What is your opinion on Klaus Schwab, his big ideas, and the world? They wrote WEF, the World Economic Forum. I don't know. I think he runs it. I don't really know what his big ideas are, but the World Economic Forum, my understanding is basically like a gathering of the billionaires to discuss how they want to structure the economy. It's the sort of thing that would be a conspiracy theory, except it's just in plain daylight, what they're talking about. I doubt we're going to get much helpful coming from it because it's a bunch of billionaires deciding how best to manage the economy. Well, I imagine they have a certain slanted perspective on that like 99% of the population may not agree with. And some of the ideas I've seen come out of, yeah, like that's where like the Great Reset has ideas come out of, and I think they've been hesitant to even explain what the Great Reset is. And what it sounds like to me is they want a system where they can kind of keep doing what they've been doing, but maybe have more less fossil fuel based energy. I hesitate to say clean or renewable. It's more like, but that's the way to put it. Less fossil fuel based energy, and maybe they'll have a giant reset of a jet. Maybe they'll have a giant reset of some debts because, like, what the national debt's like over 30 trillion now, and they realize they're going to have to figure out something. But they're going to stay in power, and things are basically going to go as they have before. But we can kind of nibble around the edges, and so I mean, I don't know. It's that was my impression of it. It was a lot of buzzwords, and that's where I think this sort of thing is where the saying "you will own nothing and be happy" came from, or it came from like a publicist writing about this. I think they were talking about predictions for the future, and some of them were accurate actually, but yeah, it's. I mean, maybe there could be more stuff I don't know about. I just know sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? A passing familiarity with Davos and the World Economic Forum. I haven't heard much that's impressed me. It just what it sounds like to me is how can we maintain the old system but pretend we're doing something new. That's what it makes. That's what most of what I've heard strikes me as. Okay. Is it time for a Ross Rants VR update? No, we gotta wait for the Pimax 12K. It could be a huge letdown. I'm prepared for that, but man, I am keeping my fingers crossed on that. Those have dream specs on that thing. If anything, it seems like AI and ray tracing are talked about more than VR these days. Yeah, I still kind of don't care about ray tracing. Sorry, it's not that I don't like neat. It's not that I don't think it's neat and has have nice graphics. It's just that raster graphics are so good. I mean, now that like I care 10 times more about art direction rather than like the crisp. And yeah, I know people will write me about anti-aliasing and frame pacing, but that's because stuff like anti-aliasing and frame pacing, that pulls me out of the game. Whereas like I'm enjoying myself and then I see like this flickering and then it bugs me. Whereas if the puddle doesn't reflect exactly the way it should in real life, but it still has a reflective surface and moves about right, then I just don't even notice. So I'm wondering where gaming graphics are headed in general. It seems like after having ray tracing seemingly rammed down our throats, it isn't really talked about much anymore. Yeah, it does kind of feel like that. I guess they're just trying to figure out somewhere to go with it. I do love how we're getting dedicated AI hardware though, because again, tons of potential with that. What the heck will the next big thing will be to convince people they need new hardware? Well, the next big thing will be the supply chain. I think we're trying to get this hardware even out there, so that the pandemic bought them a lot of time. I mean, it could be they keep pushing ray tracing, but yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned in a previous chat, it was something like if you run a game, I mean, there's a lot of variables, but if like, let's say you're running a game, I think it was 1080, somebody did a test, and the same game with ray tracing off versus ray tracing on, it was like 100 watts difference more. It might have been 130. So like that's a lot of power. And ray tracing, we're mostly just using it for additional effects. I don't think there's one game that's 100% ray traced. because people are going to say like Minecraft or Quake 2 or RTX. But what they do is they put out a lot of rays, and then they're using AI to kind of to intelligently fill in the gaps on it. It's just so intensive. So I'm not sure. It's like I'm not sure how practical that is, but I'm hardly a video card designer, so I don't know. I mean, just more speed and more. Again, I like how we're getting the dedicated AI, but like this. If there was an example, let's say you could buy a video card, but it didn't have ray trace. It had all the same capabilities as a ray trace card, but or as the regular video card, but it didn't have the ray tracing hardware. So you didn't have any support for ray tracing, but you saved 30 or $50. I would absolutely get that version because I wouldn't care. It's not worth the extra money to me. For some people it is, and great, and it's a little different because, see, sometimes we get features in like CPUs or GPUs that most people aren't going to use, but it's not that much. It's easier to just throw it in there anyway because it's like part of the actual core design, like of the die on there. And it's just easier to just have it in there so that even if only a minority of people are using this feature, well, we built it in there, so it's just easier to add. And the thing is with ray tracing, it's not just that. There's like a lot of hardware. There's like a lot of space on the die itself devoted just to ray tracing. And then and again, the power consumption is noticeable. Yeah, like I'm thinking stuff like instruction sets on CPUs. You know, that they're always adding new ones, and a lot of people don't necessarily use those for anything, but it's more specialist. But it doesn't make that much of a difference. But ray tracing, it's taken up real estate on the card. So I guess the AI cores are also, but I don't know. Some people are just going to say I'm being a Luddite and just anti-graphics, but I think it would be nice to have, I guess it would be nicer to have more of an option. However, I think they know if they do include that option, then they're not going to get enough sales to warrant it. So, yeah, it's kind of a dilemma. Okay, yeah, I spent too long on that. But yeah, I'm still quite interested in VR. Okay, well, this is an interesting question. I mentioned the concept of enlightenment awakening enough times in your video to imply you have some curiosity about it. Well, I can refer to different. There's different scales of enlightenment. You know, for some people, just moving to In fact, that's a meme for ultra wide monitor owners that they've ascended by getting a widescreen monitor. So you're not really being enlightened, but it's more like you literally do see more of some games or something, and that's a more pleasant experience, and you like it. So yeah, that's not enlightenment, but you can say enlightenment in a more casual way like that. So I can refer to that sometimes also. Whereas there's also enlightenment trying to figure out the meaning of life or trying to be in a state of kind of near perpetual bliss through. So that's closer to like the classic definition, or just a deeper understanding of human nature, that sort of thing. And they're asking my experiences with meditation and why you quit. I tried it way back when. Would you ever be willing to try it again at some point in the future if you found the right kind of information material to assist you? It just feels like, for my personality, it feels like I'd be swimming upstream doing meditation, because like I naturally like to be doing something. Even if I'm exhausted and want to relax, I might just want to like listen to music or read something calm or watch something calm. I don't really like just the idea of just doing, because meditation is all about clearing your mind. And my mind's just going like it's going. It just, I don't like doing that. If I really want to clear my mind, I'll sleep, because I'm tired. It, it's just, it's kind of the antithesis of how my mind is. Whereas my wife was talking yesterday that she saw these guys just sitting out like with like this completely empty stare on the balcony, no shirt on, overweight, drinking beer. And I'm thinking, see, those types of people might be better at meditation because they're just sitting there just like, just they're emptying their minds anyway, maybe. So it's like they probably have a better mental, they're probably, they're ahead of me of where they need to be for meditation. It's if they want to do it right. And probably the closest I come now is if I'm doing like distance running and it's like a long flat section. Like I can just completely zone out during those times. And that probably gives me like a taste of it. But to me, it's just like frustrating. Yeah, I find it frustrating to like sit still, like close my eyes, have silence, and just think about nothing, or just think about one thing, like a mantra, or something. And like, it's just, I think my personality isn't as conducive to that. I'll satisfy, when I talk about enlightenment, I'll satisfy myself with like coming across a fantastic GUI design, or a system to sort my music that I love it, and this is great, this flows perfectly, or unlocking all these worlds in VR and just finding ways to. So I can find my own sort of satisfactions from life that I'm kind of pursuing. That they're not going to be on the same level as like a Buddhist monk who can just do literally superhuman acts, do literally superhuman feats of because they're so in tune with their bodies for meditation. But it's okay. I'm all right with that. True enlightenment isn't really one of my goals. I'll leave that to. Maybe I can just take bits and pieces from it. Do you still have a simple cell phone? Yeah, I still have the one you saw in that video, though I gotta change. Well, I gotta have to change it for two reasons. One, it seems to be the range isn't so good, and two, like I got a notice from my phone provider that they need to switch it to some other. They need to switch to a different chip, and it might not work in that one. But someone gave me a hand-me-down smartphone, so I was gonna switch it, but then it was like a chip. It's like the shape of the chip. You had to like break off a piece of it, and I wasn't sure if that would break it entirely, or wasn't sure if it would necessarily work in the newer phone. So I'll probably just take care of it in like next month or two. But yeah, it's still that same Nokia you saw in the I forget which video that was. Let's see. I just haven't had. I don't get a lot of phone calls. Obviously, if I was more in touch with my friends, then yeah, I'd probably, then I would probably use it more. So it's not me just insisting, like, I refuse to use anything new. It's just, I didn't, just lazy and it works. So. Yeah. There's some things I have like an actual ideological opposition to, and that's why I don't move to the newer thing. There's other things I'm just lazy, and the existing thing works. Yeah, like with Windows, it's definitely the former, where they're just trying so hard to just take control away from the user that I really don't like that, and it could cause me problems, like real objective problems. So it's not that I won't use something new. It's just at what cost, But in the terms of phones, it's just me being lazy. So or cheap, or cheap. Cheap is also another reason. I guess I'm slowing down the e-waste cycle slightly. or at least with phones. I did upgrade my monitor, so. But I'll try to sell the old. Well, I'm using the old one of the old ones as the backup machine. Then maybe I'll sell another one. Okay, I'm gonna skip some more questions because they didn't get many votes and it's been going on a while. Oh yeah, another thing. I'll mention this. Boy, I'm so glad I put in that subtitle at the edit. In the Mage Knight Apocalypse, they're asking if I've ever used Cheat Engine. Yes, I have. And I feel like it might have come handy with playing Mage Knight Apocalypse. I was thinking, you know what? Everybody's going to come after me over Cheat Engine. I better put a note in saying, yes, I could have used Cheat Engine, but I didn't see any values for it. So I would have had to divine them all myself, and I haven't really messed with that too much. I'd have to really want the cheat in order for me to go and like figure it out myself. So for some game, like one cheat I would really want for some games, especially if they're like big open world ones, would be ones that let you control the day and night cycle, so you can just like freeze the time. Because if it's a game I'm going to be spending in VR and it's a big open world and I want to wander around and without having the clock changing all the time, then yeah, that would be worth spending time me trying to figure that out, because the payoff would be, I would get a lot of mileage out of it. Plus, the story behind the trainer kind of made it a little more entertaining for the videos, so it worked out for that. That it was kind of buggy. But yeah, I put that subtitle there in the video. People still saying, oh, have you tried Cheat Engine? So now I can just give a timestamp. So I added that in towards the end because I realized I better add this, you know. I'm looking for another game like Dungeon Siege 2, and people seem to get really confused when I ask for that and start recommending things like Diablo 3 and Path of Exile. Have you found anything like it? Great question. Not really. So I think a lot of people have recommended the game Kenshi, and that was more the aesthetics of that one sort of turned me off, because it was everything I saw was like desert and wasteland, and it was just kind of visually unappealing to me. But a lot of people say it's good, but beyond that, I really don't know. It's yeah, that is a very underserved subgenre in games, the party-based action RPG. Maybe the chat will have some suggestions, but yeah, I really haven't come across much like Dungeon Siege 1 and 2. Because I mean, one and two are similar. To 2, it's like they added some stuff, removed some stuff, but it's same ballpark. Yeah, 3 is very different. So I guess you can be a little bit. They mentioned Diablo 3 and Path of Exile, but that's just more like standard kind of Diablo clone. Though Path of Exile, you can get a lot of minions in Path of Exile. I think on one build I have, the main build I use, I have, how many minions? Hold on, I gotta count in my head. I have 19 minions. so you can get your own little party, but yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, 19 minions that stay summoned. I can bump it up to about 50 temporarily with the Vol skeletons. So maybe a little bit over 50. So okay, gonna. Okay, so sorry. Okay. Well, somebody's asking what I've watched, read, played, seen in the past few months. I took some notes. Let's see. Yeah, because I had to stop and remember. Okay, I played actually a really good one. This might get a game dungeon eventually, though I'm not in a hurry for it. I give this game a full recommendation. Broken Reality. It's kind of like a first-person adventure game with like modern sort of design, and and it's slightly Metroid-ish in the sense that you can like unlock areas by getting new abilities and that sort of thing. But the best way I would describe it, it's like a first-person perspective of like the internet in the '90s if it just kind of stayed that way. And it has a really cool atmosphere, a lot of good music in it. It has a cool aesthetic to it. Yeah, yeah. I describe it as what the metaverse should be. Like that's how I would describe it. It's funny too. There's a lot of there's a lot of funny references. I was cracking up at a few of them. Uh, Actually, my wife's even interested in that one. She was getting intrigued, although she needed me to mod it because the colors were a little overwhelming for her. So, but that's okay. I installed reshade on there, so now she can turn down the saturation on it if she wants to. Oh yeah, there was one level that was a bit much even for me. Uh, yeah, and the level to give you an idea of the game's attitude. One of the levels is like an urban environment, and the name of it's GeoCity. so, so yeah, it's loaded with references, like both modern and '90s ones. So it's yeah, maybe I should give Hypnospace Outlaw a look, but yeah, the game's great. I mean, it was fun like throughout the whole thing. Like good gameplay, good atmosphere, funny, good writing. So, um, I basically finished playing that carrier command game. I got up to a point where I realized I'm either missing something or I have to switch to a strategy I really don't like, or else it was turning into a serious slog, which I could beat maybe if I wanted to throw a lot of time at it, but I didn't want to have to move to like heavy reliance on air combat, and that looks like that might have been what I was going to have to do. So I ended up watching a playthrough of like the remainder. I made it like 3/4 of the way through the game. Uh, at the moment, I'm playing. You know, I never played through it because I mean I listened to the music of it, but I hated the scan lines in Far Cry Blood Dragon. But now I can disable it. I looked up, so I've disabled it. And I started playing some of that, but it chugged a little bit on my monitor. I couldn't maintain a steady 60 frames a second on it. But what I did was I actually have to thank a viewer for this. They emailed me. I knew about this software, but they updated it with new features I didn't know about. It's called lossless scaling. See, and I used to just use that for like nearest neighbor or integer scaling, but it had been a while since I used it. But they added AMD. Well, they added both AMD's and NVIDIA's upscaling option, like that can work on anything. Like, and AMD's, I think it's called FSR. I forget what it stands for, and I forget what NVIDIA's is like NVIDIA Image Sharp. It's not DLSS. That's something different, but it's like image enhancement or something. AMD's, I like AMD's better. Their implementation, it's pretty good. It was better than I thought it would be. Like, I was able to drop the pixels by about a third, and that gave me the speed I needed. And then I tried the upscaler, and the upscaler took maybe around 8% of a performance hit compared to native resolution you're running at, and it enhances the picture for sure. Like it's pretty good. I was surprised. So okay, yeah, FSR is Fidelity FX Super Resolution. So it doesn't help with anti-aliasing. So you still need the anti-aliasing, but so if it's bad on the source, it's going to be bad on the upscale. But if it's pretty good on the source, yeah, like I was surprised. So yeah, I got my performance out of there. So I've kind of gotten a little ways into Far Cry Blood Dragon. Yeah, and again, the music's just great in that. Good atmosphere. It had some funny lines too. I hope they keep the one-liners coming. So it start, and for movies, I didn't see too much that was that great, though. I saw one that was definitely interesting, called Vivarium, if I'm pronouncing that right. I think it's with Jesse Eisenberg. And the plot is this couple is going to check out, they're basically browsing a home to possibly buy, and things start getting weird. So I won't spoil more than that. It was good. It's just parts of it got kind of tedious. It's one of these things that would be much better if it was like a 45-minute episode. It felt kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. So, like, if you like the movie, like The Box, which I mentioned, then this will probably be up your alley. And for books, I haven't gotten far enough yet to, I don't even know what it's about, actually. One person I was having a long chat with on email had recommended a book to me called, was it Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. So I figured, sure, why not? I haven't read it. Science fiction, Arthur C. Clarke, I'm just going to go in blind. So far, it's about like a space race scenario between the U.S. and Soviets, but because it was written a while back, but it's turning into something else. So I'm still need to read more of it. Okay, should skip through some more questions. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Well, the other game I started, I'm just sort of playing it casually. It's nothing I would really recommend. I was kind of wanting, for some reason, I just wanted a game that had what sort of took place in like, I was thinking like a European countryside vibe. So I said, well, I'll play a World War II one. So I started playing Dune Normandy. So I'm just really playing it for the setting, but what was it? Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. And I had to do some finagling to get that to work in ultra wide and the field of view, but it got working. I was shocked how good the opening intro looked on ultra wide, because it starts off with you parachuting, during the Normandy invasion down to the ground. And for Unreal Engine 2, it looks amazing. Like it really gave me like a wow moment on the new monitor. Sometimes games will give me that effect, like it's on the new one. Other games I get used to and it doesn't do as much, but that one, it's like, it kind of gave that. It's okay. It's just kind of a, squad shooter, slightly more, sort of in between realistic and arcade kind of thing. But I don't know if I'll finish it or not. It has wonderful art design though. It really holds up well for being done in the Unreal 2 engine, like the visuals of it. I was really surprised. So, okay. You're asking about the different sound effects in Freeman's mind. That was me. I think auto wasn't available at the time, so I used it with somebody else, and I just decided hell with it and went for other effects, and that might have been a mistake. I should have just kept it more consistent. Let's see. Just trying to answer stuff faster now. Okay, so one of these I've already answered before in previous chats, so it needs more votes to get answered again. You're asking about my relationship with old content. I generally don't like to look at my own stuff once I've made it, actually. I guess the exception is if it's less me in it. So stuff like Civil Protection, where there's other people talking, that tends to be more watchable for me. So, but yeah, I know far too well how some of these go. And plus, I just don't like hearing my own voice a bunch, despite me voicing almost all that I've done. But would you be plugged back into the Matrix as a billionaire with your personality and life still being intact and no memory of being unplugged like Cypher in the movie, or stay in the real world? I wouldn't want my memory wiped. I would want to know what happened, but I don't know. It's kind of a scare, unless it's just yeah. I always wondered about that in the Matrix. Maybe super fans can set me straight or give this validity. When Agent Smith agrees, like, fine, putting it back in, I get the feeling they had no problem putting it back in. But I was wondering, did they have the ability to really erase his memory of it? Or was there just agreeing to this as a ruse to get cooperation? Because, I'm sure they had no problem putting him back in the Matrix, but did they have that capability that they can just erase his memory? I guess on the newer one they did, sort of. So maybe, yeah, I guess that was valid. I just don't remember if that was like within the cards, because you have to have a pretty deep understanding of the brain to do that. I guess it depends on how awful the real world is. If it's tolerable, I guess I'd want to stay real. The thing about going back in that they don't cover in the Matrix, well, there's a lot of things, is your body would atrophy too. So you probably live shorter, I would think. I guess unless maybe they could electro-stimulate that, but I would think like not having exercise, I think would make you deteriorate more. Though, I don't know. Because you would want that, but I don't know if you really, like, you could get all, like, for mentally, yeah, I guess I wouldn't have like an ideological objection to going back to the Matrix, though I would want the survival of the human race to continue, and there's some problems the robots would need to solve, even under the dystopia. What if are they planning for like long-term deep space travel, So, but I wouldn't want to backstab everyone to do it though. So yeah, if that was the only way, then I wouldn't do it. So I don't want like the Cypher equivalent of that. It's more, if Cypher really wanted to get back in, oh, I see. Actually, yeah, if they could read his memory, well, maybe he could work out a deal with the crew saying, like, okay, they're going to know. No, you might not be able to go back in. He might have been too much of a liability to go back in without backstabbing everyone, because even if they just stranded him and said, fine, let the robots pick you up and take you back, they would look through his memory or grill him and get everything they could know about the resistance that could kind of compromise them. So, yeah. Okay, I'll get the chat questions soon. Just give me a minute. Let's see. If you can indulge in sweet stuff without the associated drawbacks, what kind of curse would you shoulder in return for that superpower? Ooh, that's, well, a minor one. I don't want like a real heavy curse. Like, I don't know. I'd have to like get a list of curses. I'm not sure what that would. Yeah, a minor curse, not a major one. Do you find the approach music apps takes for organizing music limiting when it comes to video game music? I find artist album track system really frustrating to work with. Yeah, absolutely. That's the core of my music quest thing. If you want a little more, not enlightenment, but maybe one or two steps on the road to music sorting enlightenment, you can email me. I'll send you my sort of forum email on thoughts I've had on that. Do you have an opinion on CRT gaming, scanlines, or the broader retro aesthetic of playing old games? Not really. They have pros and cons to modern monitors, but I don't really miss the aesthetic. And also, for all these people posting scanlines, that was not really authentic for PC gaming. Yes, you had scanlines, but I guess if you go for like this, maybe if you're going real old, like monochrome or stuff, they were not as visible as what you see in a lot of repeats. Now, in televisions, it might have been a little bit more like that. But like on PC monitors, unless you're getting real old, you didn't really see the scan lines. Unless you just got so close to the monitor, like your face is up in it. I mean, you could see tearing, or if something was loading incredibly slowly, yeah, then you could see the scan line. But like just a constant effect there, I don't like the scan lines. I disabled it in Blood Dragon, but I don't really miss the aesthetic. But if people want that as an option, sure, you know. I think it's probably more exotic for people who never grew up with it, so it kind of has a more interesting appeal. Maybe I don't know, or maybe some people just don't want to give it up. I mean, it can make some things look better in some ways, but I don't miss it, especially basically from IPS monitors onward. I don't miss it. So. Uh, Okay, some of these just didn't get enough. They're not bad questions, but they didn't get enough votes. Okay, well, they're asking if I've heard of the 2027 mod for Deus Ex. Yeah, I played through it. I thought it was really good for what it was. I mean, it's okay. Put it like this: if it had voice acting, I would consider it like expansion level quality. Because the expansion, you don't necessarily expect it to just blow your mind and be amazing. Sometimes, but a lot of times it's just kind of more. And it delivered. So yeah, if you've played Deus Ex too much and you just want more Deus Ex, you should absolutely play 2027. Yeah, I don't think, if you're hungry for more, it won't disappoint, you know. Okay, skipping some more questions. Whoa, I got a little dizzy there. I should probably open the door in a minute. Do you think it is still possible for the United States to reverse its downhill trajectory in regards to the political or social climate? Well, that's kind of a lot of it. I mean, if we're all on board and all in the same, you know, we have a cause we're moving for, then yeah, you can reverse all kinds of things. You know, should we prepare for something along the lines of another civil war? No, I don't think so. I mean, the dividing lines aren't clear enough. I think you should prepare more for like what you were seeing in stuff like like Soylent Green, you know, where there's just a lot of riots, a lot of poverty, homelessness. Like the police are just kind of overwhelmed, and like huge divide between the wealthy and everybody else. It's just things are just more unstable, I guess. See, like a civil war, that means you have a big divide. You have armed military on both sides having conflicts. Whereas what I think the United States, what you're going to see more is just more destabilization. That's not the same thing as a civil war. So the more basic needs aren't being met for average people, the more precarious things get. So I mean, it's not possible, but I just don't. There's certain conditions you need in order to have a civil war. And I think I saw like an article before saying that like some of them the U.S. just doesn't really meet. But what? Yeah, but if like I mean, well, that's like right now, like we're like 8.5% inflation, and although I've heard like we're kind of cooking the numbers on that, and realistically, it's more like 15 to 20%. Well, if that just keeps continuing, and like job situation doesn't get better or much better, I mean, where does that take us? And then maybe we have some more problems on top of that. That takes us to like kind of rough places. So I can't tell you exactly how that plays out, but like Civil War, that's more. It does, the conditions doesn't seem quite right for that. It's a more chaos, less two sides thing, I would think, but I could be wrong. Or the yeah. Let's see. They're saying, would I be comfortable spokesperson for living in a sustainable society? Or do you think people too look deeply into what you're saying, just zoom out of topics like societal issues, the environment, and the world order? Well, I think there's a whole lot of manipulation in media with what people focus on. I mean, I think it's real easy to hit topics like 90% or more people care about. But that's not always the most profitable way to run like a news agency or something like that. But as for being a spokesperson, I mean, I'm not sure I'm the right person for something like that. They're saying other people or organizations that talk about these issues like you do. I'd love to hear about more. The conversation these things seem to be sorely lacking. Okay, maybe it is. Because the whatever order you have, like establishment or government or anything, they're not going to give you high fives about trying to organize about alternate systems that are less oppressive than whatever the current order is that benefits people who are at the top. So there's going to be kind of a suppression of that sort of thing. Especially I'd say more so now that powerful entities are getting there's a lot of centralization on the internet. With a lot of centralization, it gives more tools to manipulate things. So, what? And then they're asking if I've read, okay, I'll mention this one. If you've read Utopia for Realists by Rutger Bregman, is it any good? I did read that a year or two ago when people recommended it to me, and I wasn't impressed on either front. Like, I felt like it could be more utopian and it could be more real. So what he was talking about felt like it was just kind of like nibbling around the edges and wouldn't really address some of the biggest issues that would come from that. Well, I could have talked more about this, but we're going on a while. People want to hear me talk more about that, I could. Let's see. See, Ross, what's your favorite type of weapon in a first-person shooter? What's your go-to gun that feels satisfying to use? It varies too much between game to game. Just whatever has the most punch, I think. Like, is. Oh, I didn't see this question. I have to think of it. Okay, so go for chat questions. Just do the @Ross broadcast. I'll try to get through a few. Sorry, these are always kind of rushed. I was thinking maybe in the future I should like take chat questions after like an hour or something, and then once they seem to simmer out, then I go back to answering the submitted questions. What are your thoughts on the back rooms and the resurgence of videos from them? I only know about that because my wife linked them to me, and she's saying, "Oh my God, Ross, maybe you should watch this." So I watched them, and they were all right. That was enjoyable. I kind of like stuff with like a little more plot, I guess, than that. But yeah, when I was looking that up, that's how I found out about Vivarium. People were recommending that if you like the back rooms. But okay, in your last video, I recognized Elvira from the substitute portraits. What are the others? So I bet the chat could probably answer that for you, but. Okay, I had Spartacus with elf ears added. I put in the Goomba from the Super Mario Brothers movie. I had the Swedish chef from the Muppets. And I had the eagle, or I forget his name, also from the Muppets. I forget her name, the Amazon woman from Killer Instinct 2 in there. I had this might have been either like The Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings movies. I don't know, but I was looking up Durin, and apparently there was a Durin character that got a on-film appearance. So since there was Durin in there, I put the Durin portrait. Let's see, are there any others I'm forgetting? There might be all of them. I don't know. I was just trying to get ones that have like a similar vibe as what the original one was. Okay, I gotta scroll up for a second. Sorry. Uh, what should I do with my raw footage after I finish the video? Encrypt it, set it aside on an external hard drive? Well, up to you. I tend to just purge mine. I mean, I'd save a real high quality copy of the video, and then I archive that. I archive the separate audio tracks. Usually, I archive all my images that I used in the video. Sometimes I'd save the script, not always. And I usually just junk everything else because I just don't have the storage for that. The exception was Battleforge and Darkspore. I saved more footage from that because I knew I wasn't getting it back. So, okay. I need more World War II first-person shooter. Return to Castle Wolfenstein or Medal of Honor style. What do you suggest? I still need to catch up on some of those, but yeah, people mentioned that's part of why it says the chat's paused, but I brought it down all the way. Okay, there we go. Okay, well, good to know. Yeah, a UI tip. If you use the middle scroll button to scroll down, Twitch will not recognize that as coming to the end. You have to use the scroll wheel. So, okay. Yeah, there's Brothers in Arms. One I was going to check out, but I had some bugs with was, I think it's like the Deadly Dozen. Yeah, Deadly Dozen. Jesus, maybe I can figure. I have to pull up my games list here. Well, my games library list. It's basically like the games list on the website. It's just for all the games I own. Okay. Let's see. Let me look under first-person shooters. Let's see if I'll recognize any. Yeah, there was a sequel to the Brothers in Arms. Well, I think there's a sequel to Deadly Dozen also. Except those in the Pacific. Chat might be able to recommend some. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert of like World War II games, but that one's it. I'm not sure that one's Oh yeah, Wolfschanz. Yeah, that's another one. That one, I think it takes. I think that one's involved in like from the German army perspective about the operation to try to overthrow Hitler. Let's see, what are some others? That might be all I have. I mean, there's probably a ton of like real-time strategy or turn-based strategy games that you could look up. There's probably a list of best ones for that. But yeah, you're talking about first-person shooter. Yeah, if you're going for World War II first-person shooters. Well, I mean, there's another more recent one. I forgot. It's like a blur to me whether it's Battlefield or Call of Duty or Medal of Honor. I have no idea which one. But I think there was like a single player campaign that they put a lot of effort into. I'm sure the chat can sort out which one I'm thinking of. Yeah, it might have been like no, yeah. I forget. It might have been Medal of Honor. I'm not sure. But yeah, well, that gives you a few to work with. Okay, so let's see. Scrolling up again. It looks like there are more and more hatred about EU policy from U.S. netizen, in particular where the EU is challenging the most monopolistic U.S. companies. What is your take on that? Who knows how much of that is? I don't know the specifics of this, but like if the EU is trying to do something that is actually anti-monopoly, anti-monopolistic, who knows how much of the hatred is organic? You know, I think somebody brought this up a while back, where where I wasn't really that familiar with it. They were talking about like the something like the fake internet theory, where the idea is, I think the thing was, it was presented to me as though like almost everything on the internet is just an AI generated, and that didn't make sense to me. But what does make sense is maybe the vast majority of comments, especially on controversial issues, especially on anything that can be threatening to a large business or government institution, maybe a lot of those are generated. Oh, I may have mentioned this before. I'll give a link to this. Back when the net neutrality net neutrality debate was going on, let's see. Maybe I can give you the exact number. That you could submit comments to the FCC, and yeah, there it is. Okay. And they found out later, this is like years later, that they did some analysis of the comments, and opposition to net neutrality was faked. In total, about 18 million of the 22 million comments sent to the FCC during the debate over the net neutrality was fake. So that's 18 out of 22 million. So somebody can do the math on that. That's got to be like, over 90%. So my first thought after seeing that is, who knows how many other things this are like that we just never know about. So who knows what's even real as far as just online comments. Some you can tell are like kind of, especially as AI gets better. Okay, I guessed wrong. I was thinking 90%. Okay, over 80%, 82%. But still, that is enormous. That's a clear majority of the commentary given that is fake. So we're entering interesting territory for something like that. So when you bring up that, who knows what's real for what people think? I mean, it's so. And the thing is, the techniques have only gotten better, and there's probably only more funding for that sort of thing now. So yeah, like the saying, "Don't believe everything you read," that's probably never been more true. Yeah, I mean, the stuff I tend to believe is the stuff that, like, very well substantiated, or there's not much of a reason to have like a counter information, psychological operation campaign. So yeah, I'll have a link to that. The comments faked. Yeah, I feel like, that 18, the 80% of comments being faked, it could, for all I know, it could be that's the last time we'll really find out. Because those were comments submitted to the FCC where they could kind of verify things, and, you have to give some user information. It would not shock me if companies responsible for doing like these AstroTurf campaigns never want information like that being released again. So remember that on a very important issue that was seemingly controversial and very not in business's favor, 80% of the comments were faked. And so, like, who knows how that is shaping history? Modern history. So it's, it's, we're going to need new techniques to divine, like, what's actually happening with public opinion, I think. Okay, let's see. Have you read any of Stanislav Lem's books? Yeah, I think I read one of them for sure. Was that Age of the Pussyfoot? Or am I thinking of a different author? I might be thinking of a different author. Yeah, that's Frederick Pohl. The one I'm thinking of is like where this guy, I think they both maybe involve this guy going to the future. I read one of them. I forget the name of it. Maybe I should read more. Yeah, I think it was about a guy from like present times going to the future, but that I think that's the plot of Age of the Pussyfoot also. So maybe I'm mixing things up. I think I'd recognize the title, but yeah, maybe I'll look into more of that. But well, let me go through the Arthur C. Clarke one first. Do you feel safe being next to a certain country? That's yes. Well, I think either I'm safe here or else the entire northern hemisphere is significantly not safe. That's my attitude on this. So this is another topic I have to be careful what I say, or YouTube can really crack down. Yeah, this is one. This is another one of those topics where I feel like unless you know exactly what you can talk about, what you can't, a nuanced discussion isn't possible. So for me, it's like you kind of need to know where the mines are, and I don't. You know, if you're walking through a minefield. Whoa, okay, it skipped there. Thoughts on the RTS genre? I never really got much into Age of Empires. I played a little bit of it, though. I think some of that got. I heard that like there were elements of that got spun off into They Are Billions and that like that a lot. Yeah, I think there's more RTS stuff that's coming on the horizon. Actually, I have to look at my games list. What are your thoughts on the Halo soundtrack? I think it has good parts, but I also think it's overrated. I mean, the parts that are good are very good, but then Halo soundtrack does that's like a lot of the tracks. Like I think like I take the main theme. I think the part where they have like a choir going that's pretty good, and then like the main theme's just kind of okay, and then like a lot of the tracks just kind of feel okay. But then there's some that really stand out. Like one of my favorites from the original Halo soundtrack is the Ambient Wonder track, and that one's like so nice and peaceful, and like it's just yeah, it's talking about enlightenment. That one felt like enlightenment music, but just the general sort of action score. It's like oh, I've heard a lot of stuff like this. But then what was it in Halo 2? I think yeah, I think it was called Peril. That they had I like three quarters of that track a lot, like the dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Like that one's nice. I like a lot of that. But then like in the middle of it, they cut back more to like the generic actions, like dun 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 dun. Like, and that part just felt kind of weak to me. But on both sides of it, I love that theme. So I don't know. It's a mix. I guess I haven't really heard the Halo soundtrack past two. So I probably need to catch up on the series with the music. So sometimes it's really great. Most of it I'm not that impressed by, but some of them are home runs, in my opinion. So I think like ODS 3, ODST, I think I heard some of that one that had some good stuff in there, but I might be mixing things up. How much of Deus Ex's conspiracy theories became real according to you? Jeez, I'd have to. I would need the list. Sorry, I lost track. So, well, I felt like the most relevant. Yeah, so present me a list, and then maybe I could like give analysis on it. I mean, the ones where he's talking about like how the one he was talking about in like the Statue of Liberty of like the consolidation of corporations and stuff. That one might have played out a little differently, but that was true kind of when the game was being made. It just wasn't talked about. So what do you think about the gamer movement? GAYMER. Do you think sexuality of some characters is an interesting thing to explore? That's one of those things where it's like, this just doesn't have any interest to me, but if that's your thing, great. You know, like I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade with that. It just, your game's gonna need, that's not gonna win me over for your game. Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of the games I cover, sometimes the relationship comes up, like, what was it, like the Cave World? That was much more relevant in that one. Phantasmagoria too, yeah, the relationship's a big part of that. A lot of the games are not. I mean, yeah, like I covered the Journeyman project. I don't think that really even came up. That's not the relationships are not why I play games unless we take it to very interesting levels. For the cave world, that was more like a fun thing that was going on in the middle of this. And plus, it was kind of just, plus, they weren't going for drama in the cave world. It was more like, okay, this is like a romance plot, but this is getting increasingly dysfunctional and it's kind of comical what's happening here. So, like, yeah, if it's like a funny relationship thing, that could be interesting, but I mean, it's yeah, it's not my thing though. I mean, also as a straight man, I'm just not as interested in gay relationships really, unless they have something else that's like really going for it, like I'm thinking. Okay, well, I'm thinking of an example like the Boondock Saints. The one of the main detective is gay in that, and you see some snippets into his relationship life, and it's hilarious. So if it's not if it's like relationship drama, I'm probably tuning out to that a lot for just even for the straight relationships. But again, if that's what you like, fine. I mean, it's not like I don't. That's the sort of thing where I don't consider that like a negative point against the game unless it just feels like it's really being shoehorned in there. But at this, it just feels more like, okay, I'm the wrong audience for this, you know? Like, yeah, like my wife tried a game I wasn't that interested in. Was it Boyfriend Dungeon? Where it seems like that the target demographic for that is not straight men. So I think that's fair to make that statement. But if you enjoy, I mean, she played it, so fine, you know. Or no, she played part of it. I think she ended up being dissatisfied with the options. So I guess that works out well for me. That like that it didn't. If she's unsatisfied with the fictional options, well, that's a point for me. uh, but yeah, it's enjoy, but that's not really my thing. So. But yeah, it doesn't mean you can't have it. It's just, or makes the case worse. It's just, yeah, I would advise against trying to shoehorn it in there. Yes, so make it the sort of thing where, like, if you're, like, it can be kind of a passing thing, whereas like the relationship might be a passing thing. But and also, even then, if it's like a major part of the game, you might want to do like see, is this the sort of thing that like the target demographic you're trying to sell to, like, is that gonna like push them away from the game or more into it? Like, I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably just stereotyping here, but like, if it's like a gory, violent action game, and then like you're shoehorning in like a more serious gay relationship, that might your target demographic's probably gonna have a higher degree of like straight men playing it compared to like a graphic adventure game where you're like having a like an investigation or something like that, where sometimes you do have like relationship issues that are kind of explored more in depth and that sort of thing. So I guess just try to figure out what you want for your game. But you know, people can make people can make the games they want. You know, it's I'm not trying to. Yeah, like it's like I can't remember if I said this in the games as a service video. It's like I defend people's right to make bad games. This doesn't mean that those games are necessarily bad. It's just that if you shoehorn things where they don't necessarily fit well, then that can make the game worse. So, but yeah, it's all about context, I think. Okay, spent too much time on that. Find a game like Flat Out 2. Tried Wreckfest and Mad Max, but they don't quite capture the adrenaline speed of it. Got any suggestions? Geez. Trying to think ones where you like. Okay, it's not the same thing, Okay, yeah, okay, actually, yeah. It's counterintuitive, but the police chases from the Grand Theft Auto games, like the newer ones, you'll get adrenaline from that. like yeah, come and get me, pig, and then just they will give though. There's lots of ramming and trying to create your own paths to cut through. I mean, it's less racing, but yeah, I'm sure there's other options. But yeah, that'll give you like my absolute favorite mission. You know, I played through 4 like last year or so or 2 ago, and like my absolute favorite mission was like the bank robbery, where the bank robbery goes off smooth enough, but then the escape where you're trying to get away. Oh man, that keeps you on that keeps you on edge. It's good. So okay, I think I'll let's see. Fear goes. Oh well, yeah. I gave a reply to this person. They said a few years ago they gifted extra copy of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. What are your thoughts on the series and the soundtrack? Oh, okay. They thought that was the most impressive OST they heard in their life. Well, I don't know if it was the most impressive I heard in my life, but I found it pleasant. I guess I would have to listen to it more carefully. Yeah, I sent this guy an email back. I thanked him for it. I enjoyed Mirror's Edge Catalyst more than I thought I would. The atmosphere. I mean, the story was just kind of so-so, but the atmosphere was great, and I enjoyed the exploration aspect of it quite a bit. Apparently, that one got kind of panned. That's too bad because I would not mind more games in that style. Where they kind of where they put a lot of effort into the world, and then a lot of the game is exploring that world. So, well, I kind of got my what? I kind of got a taste of that again with Broken Reality. So, but yeah, no, thanks for that. I enjoyed it. And I think I saw one. Yeah, they're asking about Game Dungeon for the Myth games. I still need to play them, and I was thinking earlier maybe that would be a good one for a remake because the graphics were a little rougher on that at the time those were made. Yeah, no, that's on my 2 playlist, the Myth games. All right, I'm going to end it. I'm getting quite hungry. This has gone on longer than I wanted it to again. Videos coming, and at least I feel like with Freeman's Mind and the longer Game Dungeon, I've at least built back a little bit of faith that I'm going to get more out. So that's what I'm aiming for, to get more out. I want to. The goal at the moment is to just give you guys a stockpile of videos to watch, so that like if you don't watch me again for half a year, you have all sorts of stuff that you can watch when you come back, and maybe by then I can be making a lot of headway more on the movie. Okay, and then yeah, check the request at the start if you can help with that. Okay, I'll see you.